Good evening, everyone. I'll call to order this meeting of the Cotati City Council and the successor agency to the former Cotati Community Redevelopment Agency. And we'll start with a roll call, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Sparks?
Here.
Councilmember Harvey?
Here.
Vice Mayor Lemus?
Here.
Mayor Ford?
Here.
We'll show Councilmember Savage as absent. Thank you.
Thank you. So on to approval of minutes and notice of waiving of reading of all resolutions and ordinances introduced and or adopted under this agenda. We have one set of minutes from November 18th. Did any council members? Oh, there were a few corrections that I gave to Kevin, and we have a revised copy reflecting a few corrections in the proclamation section. Besides that, did anybody see any changes that were needed? Okay, we'll open this for public comment. Comment on the minutes of November 18th. We'll start in the room. Not seeing anybody here. We'll check with Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon if you'd like to make a public comment on this item. Seeing no hands, Mayor Ford, that will end public comment.
All right, thank you. Back to council for motion and decision.
Move to approve the minutes. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that carries 4-0. So that brings us to item 3, agenda review. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda? We'll start with council. Do you wish to propose a change to the agenda?
Yes, I do have a request. I would request that we move number 8A from the regular agenda to right after number 6.
So move item 8A, the council reorganization, to between 6 and 7?
Yes.
Any objections from the council? Any other changes proposed?
No proposed other changes.
Okay, so since we're proposing to change from the printed agenda, we'll open for public comment. So anybody wishing to comment on the setting the agenda for tonight, now's the time. We'll check with Zoom first.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment on this item. Mayor Ford, there are no hands on Zoom.
Okay, anybody in the room wishing to comment on the setting the agenda? All right, that'll end public comment. And if there's no opposition, we'll proceed with that change. Okay, on to item 4, citizen business and public comment for consent calendar items. So this is an opportunity for any member of the public to speak on any of the 5 items on the consent calendar, or on any item that's not on the agenda but is within the purview of the City Council. So you can have up to 3 minutes on any and all items on the consent calendar, and an additional 3 minutes for items not on the agenda. And we'll start in the room for this one. So this is public comment on the consent calendar items. Anybody in the room? Okay, let's check with Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment. The first hand is from Lori. You have the floor.
Hello. I wanted to let you guys know that with the transit-oriented committee, I've explained it over and over, so that's why you don't have a whole lot of people in the room. They thought way it was written that it was going to be eminent domain, taking of their property, and all this kind of stuff. So I set them straight. It's not what the state has control of their property anyway. And everybody was very nice to me. And also I went to Dixon and I was loved for my public comment. The city of Dixon, they were thanking me. It was such a nice experience after dealing with you guys. The code enforcement scandal is still going on. Right now, we're scheduled for hearings in January, which is 2.5 years. Nobody knows who's paying the judge. There's no records, public records of who's paid the judge since February. The PRA requests are getting, Kevin's trying to fulfill them, but what he's being given is crap, junk files and not what we've asked for. We filed criminal complaints and with the city of Cotati police and have not heard a word. Well, George heard a word today, but I have not heard a word about my criminal complaint. You guys need to deal with this because this is going and going. Why you can think you could do this to a person for 2.5 years? Not only him, but to a whole. George is just one of the people that are affected by this. There's 4 or 5 of us that they're trying to ruin our lives for money or power, and that's needs to stop. And it's going to come out, and all of you are going to look horrible. So I would work on that. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Mayor Ford, there are no further hands on Zoom. That will end public comment.
Okay, and I began in the room, yes? Okay, all right. So public comment over. We're back to the consent calendar. Does any council member wish to pull any item? Okay, take a motion.
Move to approve the consent calendar. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that carries 4-0 as well. So that brings us to agenda item 8A, which has been moved to this place, the reorganization of the City Council for calendar year 2026. We'll start with the staff report, as soon as staff can find the right page in this 500-page packet.
Mr. Mayor, were you going to do direction on future?
All right.
first?
Oh, I'm sorry. We were supposed. It was after 6, not before 6. Pardon me. I jumped over one agenda item. Right, give you a chance to find the page. So, direction on future agenda items. Do council members have anything they wish to place on a future agenda? All right, was that enough time? All right, we're on to agenda item 8A now, reorganization of the City Council.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So in the City Council adopted policy, there is just simply a requirement to appoint among the members a new mayor each year, the first meeting in December, and that's intended to coincide with the election years when there's potentially new members of the council being elected. And the new, the way it works is that the council chooses among the members tonight, and the appointment is effective January 1. So the existing mayor continues to serve as mayor until December 31st. The new mayor would start on January 1. In the staff report, there's a table of prior mayors and vice mayors, just for reference. Now, this isn't policy, but we get to practice. The practice has been that the vice mayor is typically appointed as a mayor in the subsequent year, and then the city council member with the longest gap since their last appointment as mayor, or if they've never been appointed mayor, is then typically appointed as vice mayor. And if city council members have the same term, like they're elected in the same year, the typical criteria to determine the order of appointments is prior experience on other city bodies like planning commission, that sort of thing. So that's the typical process that's used. And if a nominated city council member declines an appointment, the next city council member in the rotational method is then typically appointed in their place. I will note that Council Member Savage, who is not with us tonight, he did send me a comment about this item, and he just said that he doesn't want to be considered in this rotation for 2026. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Are there any questions about the process? Okay, we'll open this to public comment. We'll start in the chambers. Anybody wishing to comment on the reorganization, the selection of mayor and vice mayor for next year? Now's the time. And we'll check with Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, Zoom attendees, if you would like to make a public comment on this item, which was moved during agenda review, please use the raise hand icon. There are no hands on Zoom, Mayor Ford. That will end public comment.
Okay, thanks. So back to council for some decisions. We'll start with mayor. Anybody wish to make a nomination?
I nominate Sylvia for mayor.
Anybody want to second that nomination? I'd be happy to.
Sure, I'll second it.
Okay. So, Vice Mayor Lemus, would you be willing to accept that nomination?
Yes, I would accept it, proudly accept it, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on this one, or anybody wanting to make other nominations? Go ahead.
I'd like to nominate Councilmember Harvey. Oh,
We're only doing mayor, and then we'll come back to vice mayor.
I take it back.
Okay. Well, but I'm assuming you were nominating her for vice mayor, not for mayor. Okay, all right. So we'll come back to vice mayor after we decide on mayor. All right, there's been a nomination. All those in favor of approving the nomination, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
Great work. And so we'll proceed with vice mayor selection and nomination. Go ahead.
I would like to nominate Councilmember Harvey for vice mayor.
And I'll second that.
All right. Councilmember Harvey, are you willing to accept the nomination?
Yes, I am willing to accept that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So any further discussion or comments? All right, all those in favor of appointing Councilmember Harvey as vice mayor for next year, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? All right, that carries 4-0. Congratulations to both of you, and thank you. Thank you. Do you need a brief recess to say hi to people?
I think so. Yeah,
Okay.
Yes, I appreciate everyone. I appreciate the city council members and the staff and all the family and friends that came today. I appreciate that, and I look forward to representing Cotati and its residents and here in Cotati and even the whole region. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
And I want to say what a pleasure it's been to serve as mayor with you as vice mayor. You've covered for me innumerable times, so you already know most of the job very well. So we're in good hands with you. So thanks for being
And I
willing to take
appreciate
it on.
I appreciate your kind of training me and letting me go to meetings and such.
Oh,
Thank
yeah,
you.
it's been great. So we'll take a 5-minute recess now. All right, we're back from recess. And back into our regular order of the agenda, back to item 7A, public hearing to introduce and hold a first reading of an ordinance amending the land use code, creating two new zoning districts that implement the transit-oriented communities policies. So we'll start with a staff report.
Thank you, Mayor Ford, Council. As identified, tonight's item is consideration and introduction and first reading of an ordinance implementing the Santero Way and transit-oriented community policies. My name is Noah Hausch. I'm Community Development Director for the city. To describe the project, we're going to start with a summary of the transit-oriented community and Santero Way specific plan policies. Essentially, it's implementing residential density of 25 to 35 units to the acre, a commercial floor area ratio of 1.0 to 3.0, parking maximums of 1.5 spaces per residential unit and 4 spaces per 1,000 feet of commercial square feet, and no minimum parking requirements. And then implementation of the housing policies related to protection, production, and preservation, the 3 Ps of housing. And those policies came from a menu of options provided by ABAG, which we've previously presented and discussed. Continuing with the ordinance description, there's also policies related to commercial stabilization, parking management, access to the SMART station and circulation around it. And then, as the council's aware, our department typically takes advantage of ordinance work to do some code cleanup, and we've put a little bit of that in this, specifically related to the definitions of some uses and also to allow tattoo studios to be taken from the restricted use category into just a broad general use category. So before we get into the specifics of the project, I'll just provide a little bit of summary and kind of the trends in housing state law. There's been a lot of laws passed related to housing in the state, and they've generally sought to reduce or remove local control, limit the amount of parking cities can require, especially around transit, push certain types of projects, and especially affordable housing projects, as by right, so kind of not going through the typical public review process that we're all used to, moving straight to building permits. Kind of expectations that the city support housing development at all affordability levels and pushing an inclusionary or affordable housing component of almost every project at around 15%, which is consistent with the city's policy that we've had for a long time. And then also looking at transit-oriented community development and kind of increasing the intensity of development around train stations and high frequency transit, which is what this policy is. And the council, I use this slide, and it's been growing every year. So this is an artist puts together a graphic every year since about 2017. Identifying all the housing bills that the state was considering. So not all of these passed, but these were all that were under consideration just for this year in April of 2025. When the artist first started putting the graphic out, there was a lot more art on the graphic than there is now. There's not a lot of room left. But this is just a summary or an idea just to give the context of all of the things that the cities had to respond to, and all the cities in the state have had to respond to regarding housing. Since 2017, there have been 100 housing bills passed, each of which has affected how we do our jobs. And so I like to kind of identify that because this is a slice of that that we're coming forward with tonight. So getting into some of the background of the project, we really started this discussion in August of 2023 when the city initiated an update to the Santero Way specific plan. The previous plan had been written in 2001, and it really envisioned kind of a office mixed-use development along the Santero Way, and was kind of coming out of the economic assumptions that were in place at the time when the North Bay was really seen as a burgeoning telecom hub or telecommunications, and that was when Nokia was the #1 cell phone company in the world, and a lot of telecommunication companies were expanding in the North Bay. Later in 2001, the iPhone was invented, and kind of that reality really shifted. But so in September of 23, shortly after we initiated the update to the plan, ABAG MTC started talking about these draft transit-oriented community policies that they were pushing down on the city, really related to grant funding that the city receives and that we really use to do a lot of our infrastructure improvements. And so if we're not compliant with TOC policies, our competitiveness and ability to get that grant money goes significantly down, and that's really the motivation behind this expansion of the transit-oriented communities that we're discussing tonight. In 2024, April, the environmental analysis for the Centerra Way specific plan and the potential to rezone the transit-oriented community parcels was analyzed and adopted. So all of the environmental work was done previously. The update was approved in 2025, and then in May, ABAG MTC finalized their TOC policy, and then that's when we started looking at moving forward with rezoning to implement all of these steps. And since June of 2025, this will be our 5th meeting that we've held to discuss these topics with the community. We started with neighborhood meetings, we've had workshops with both the commission and council, and then we had a public hearing with the planning commission last month. So this is a slide that shows the half-mile radius and some of the parcels that are affected. So right in the middle is the Centerra Way specific plan. It's highlighted in yellow, and you can see the train station graphic kind of right in the middle of that. The kind of blue hash mark parcels are proposed to be rezoned Centerra Way, and that's more of a residentially focused transit-oriented community zoning district that we're proposing to create. Primarily, it does allow some mixed use, but it's primarily residential. And then all of the kind of teal colored hash marks that are closer and fronting onto East Cotati Avenue are proposed to be more of a true mixed use. And then these parcels that are identified outside the boundary are not included. So this graphic was made when we were first analyzing all of the potential areas to include in this project, and those parcels are not part of this project. And the red circle identifies the half-mile radius around the train station. It's interesting to note most of the parcels that are included in the half-mile radius are not in the city of Cotati. They're in the jurisdiction of Rohnert Park. Rohnert Park has not started to do a TOC policy project for our train station. They focused on the train station they have near their future downtown site close to the library. And then the black dash line is the actual Cotati city limit. So that just shows the Cotati parcels in relationship to the Rohnert Park parcels, and then also within that half-mile radius. This is the same graphic or a depiction of the same properties, but just with an aerial photograph. The yellow parcels are the Centerra Way specific plan, and the blue parcels are the additional ones that were included for the TOC rezoning effort. And then you can see Oliver's is kind of the far left blue rectangle, and then the Smart Station is kind of the northern portion of that yellow area. So kind of summarizing some of the community concerns. So as I mentioned, we've had a lot of outreach and engagement with the community. We had a community advisory committee panel, so we had members of the neighborhood and community meet with us all through the Centerra Way specific plan process. And the direction we got, or identifying the concerns with this potential upzoning project, are parking number one. So we've heard a lot about parking. The Centerra Way neighborhood is kind of notorious for having parking challenges, and we've worked with them through the approval of some projects to try to mitigate them. Unfortunately, those projects haven't moved to construction, and so some of the things that we required to be done haven't been implemented yet, but we know that parking is of great concern to all the residents in these areas. Obviously, the mix of land uses, so putting all the different types of uses that come with mixed use in one area. There was some concerns about how that would happen, and that we were being thoughtful about minimizing impacts to future residents on or from commercial properties and vice versa. So there were some commercial properties who were really concerned with new housing going next door and then affecting their ability to do business. The glass shop is one of those examples that we talked to, and he was part of the community advisory committee, but ultimately ended up supporting the project as we worked through kind of these balancing needs. Obviously, looking to the city to do what we can to manage the impacts of just intensifying land use, obviously more traffic, more people, more parking needs, and we needed to look at all of that. Everyone knows the importance of emergency evacuation routes and then also emergency access as development does get built out. Consistency with the architecture. So Cotati has a pretty defined sense of the look of the housing and the development that the community wants. And that knowledge and that direction came through with the Santero Way process, and we've tried to continue it into some of the zoning standards that we've implemented for other properties as well. The importance of maintaining open space for all these new residents, including some affordability in all projects, and then obviously, or also a mix of rental and ownership types of projects. So not just all apartments and not just all condominiums or single-family homes, but including a mix of affordability at all levels and all different housing types was really important. We got a comment today that I just wanted to speak to. So we got one additional comment that came in and it was added to the packets. And there was some concern over the total number of units that are included in the potential to upzone all of this, which is about 640 units. And it's just important to identify that no projects are being proposed tonight. No development is being approved with this effort. This is a change to the zoning and land use regulations that would allow projects to build out over time. And generally, specific plans envision a 10 to 20 year period. So there's nothing that's actually proposed for construction that is on the council's agenda this evening. And then also there was some concern over impacts of light industrial uses. And it's important to note that these zoning districts that are proposed are mixed-use zoning districts. They are not light industrial zoning districts. However, some of the existing commercial buildings like the glass shop and then the existing commercial buildings down at the end of Santero and then even the mini storage that's right there on East Cotati are light industrial. And so through the engagement process, we heard from the community that it was important to kind of respect those existing businesses and allow them to continue to operate and thrive. And then also we've talked about the changes in retail and the folks who are going to occupy these future stores and the need for them to be able to be somewhat flexible. And we've talked about essentially through most of our land use changes trying to come up with flexibility where somebody has the ability to make a product in their store and then also sell it and get that direct-to-consumer price point and not have to go through a middle person or have a pure manufacturing business that then uses a distribution or a distributor network that takes a cut of their ultimate retail price. And so that's what we were trying to get to with some of the light industrial type uses. And then the last thing is the code does allow reoccupancy of some existing buildings, those ones down at the end of Santero, with business types that would be more light industrial, like a contractor or maybe an indoor recreation facility. And that was at the direction of the community members who were really concerned with just those buildings being empty. They felt that it would be better to have a use in those locations, the people that we heard from, than to have them sit vacant. And the impacts associated with vacant buildings were more concerning to the folks that we really heard from than the potential for a use that may not be a perfect fit, like a contractor who may operate out of one of those warehouses. So that's just some of the things I wanted to point to and highlight that are included in the changes and were referenced in one of the letters that came in late today. So getting into a summary of kind of how we're proposing to comply or what the ABAG expectations are. There was 4 categories: minimum residential and commercial densities, affordable housing production, preservation and protection, and commercial stabilization policies, parking management, transit access and circulation. The compliance thresholds are based on tiers. These are policies for the entire Bay Area. So we're the tier 4, the lowest tier, and that's based on SMART's kind of frequency levels and ridership levels. So the policies do recognize that SMART is not the same as Muni, and the frequency and ridership is not the same. Some of the compliance standards were mandated, so like the density levels and the parking, and so that's why those are proposed at those levels. But others we were allowed to select from a menu of options. We've discussed those at multiple points through through the process. I'm not going to get into details of my presentation to try to save time, but I'm happy to answer questions, and I do have some slides prepared if we need to get into the details of those. And then there was a choice in how to apply these. So do we only apply all the policies within the half-mile radius, or do we allow some of them to extend citywide? And in some instances, staff is recommending, and the Planning Commission supported this recommendation, to allow some of them to apply citywide. And that's primarily to allow implementation of those policies, and then also to take advantage of some of the added benefits. And one of those is parking management. So there are some parking management policies that we put into the code that would apply citywide, because we thought, as the state law trend to reduce parking on all types of housing development, we thought it would be beneficial to have some code language that forced developers to put in parking management plans as they move forward with their development. So that is proposed to be citywide. To get into a strategy on how we're proposing to comply, as I've talked about, we're proposing to create 2 new zoning districts. We're proposing some updates to the existing code language. That's attached as a red line to the council packet, starting on page 142, all the red line changes. We're proposing to create some new department programs, such as a small business liaison, make some updates to our website, and then we're going to submit all of this documentation through a compliance portal that ABAG MTC has stood up. Staff did have a goal of trying to get a response from ABAG MTC before we brought the ordinance forward tonight. We were not able to get that response, but we do have some additional information that the Planning Commission requested we provide that I'll get into as I get through the presentation. So how did we kind of come up with this recommendation? Primarily community input. So as I mentioned, we really took a lot of time and heard a lot of input from the community. The council have an adopted set of goals, and we looked at these policies through the light of the council goals and used that kind of philosophy to select some of the policy options from the menu. We looked at what policies had we already adopted and were we already trying to achieve, like through our housing element. We had a department work plan that the council approved, and there was some economic development direction in that work plan that was in alignment with the business liaison, and so we took advantage of that. Obviously, there's a lot of state mandates out there, and so we like to take advantage of things that we already have to do when we can kind of double dip, and so we looked for options to do that. And then lastly, funding availability and commitment timelines. And so this table on the right, I apologize, it's kind of hard to see the details, but one of the ways that ABAG MTC proposed to allow cities to comply is just by putting funding towards various things. They say if you spend $1 million within a 4-year period on affordable housing funding, then you can check that box for housing production. If you spend $500,000 on housing preservation, then you can qualify for that and you don't need to make any land use changes. And then similarly, $100,000 for protection. Unfortunately, we had already adopted our budget. We have a 2-year budget cycle, and it doesn't anticipate any of these costs, and so staff didn't feel it was appropriate to recommend kind of blowing up the budget when we had other ways to comply with the policy. But we are proposing to take advantage of the production by the 120 East Cotati Avenue project, which the council funded, which was bought with the Affordable Housing Fund and was $1.6 million. So we're proposing to ABAG MTC that we take credit for that. But the other funding options we are not recommending. We're recommending compliance through policy changes. And so just to highlight summarize some of the requirements, there's parking minimums and maximums for commercial and residential properties that we have to implement. We already allow shared parking, so we're already consistent there. There's a proposal to allow unbundled parking, so allow the rental of a home separate from the payment of a parking space. The Planning Commission had some input on that I'll get into. And then there was some standards for bicycle parking minimums that were a little bit different than our current standards, so we are proposing to update the code to implement those. For station access and circulation, we were primarily compliant already with our current policies, except there's a concept of a mobility hub that we're proposing to implement with some zoning changes into one of the sections of the code. I'm happy to get into details if there's questions on that, but otherwise we were already compliant regarding station access and circulation. And then there's some additional code cleanup. So as I identified before, currently tattoos and body piercings are in a very restricted zoning category. It's kind of an antiquated perspective. Staff's proposing to bring those into kind of more of a contemporary perspective. You know, tattoo studios are very mainstream, are not seen as having a blight type impact that they maybe once were perceived as having, and so we are proposing to allow that. The change would allow tattoo studios essentially the same locations as salons. Currently, our tobacco store definition does not live in the zoning code, and that's caused some conflict when we talk to potential applicants because we do not allow tobacco stores or smoke shops in Cotati. We have 2 that are allowed as non-conforming uses. They're fine. They can continue to operate, but no new ones would be allowed to come in. And then the Planning Commission recommended that we ensure micro distilleries and vintage clothing sales were clearly identified in the land use code because those are kind of trending land use types, and we just wanted clear rules about them. And then there's actually no process written down in the code on how you do a rezoning or a general plan amendment, which is a very typical process that cities do, and we even have done them ourselves, but it wasn't a codified process. So we are proposing to codify that process. It's documented in the land use changes, and I'm happy to get into the details on that. But we used a very standard process that it goes through public hearings, typical notification requirements, but it just was never written down on how to do that. And so it's important to have those documented, and especially the findings that are required to make those changes. The Planning Commission heard all of this on November 3rd and voted 2-1 that the ordinance be recommended for approval with the City Council. Concerns were voiced over the proposal to unbundle parking by the dissenting vote, and the main concern that was identified was it would essentially allow landlords an opportunity to maybe raise rents because they would say, you know, cities are changing my rules. I have to look at your housing separate from your parking now, and so I'm going to reduce your rent by $50, but I'm going to charge you $100 for a parking space. And so essentially that was the concern from one of the commissioners who was not supportive of the ordinance for that reason. The commission were concerned with not moving forward because of obviously all the work that had been done, but they directed staff to provide some additional input to the council for their consideration. And so one concern was, well, how much of a compliance impact will it be if we take out unbundled parking? It's only 1 point. So if the council doesn't want to move forward with that, it would be 1 point in our compliance score, which is 85 85 to 100 is the maximum. So it's not a significant impact on our compliance if the council wanted to make that decision. And then also the commission asked staff to look at the cost ranges of parking. It was hard to nail down, and that kind of varies all over areas of the Bay Area, whether it's covered parking, whether it's an open lot, but it was essentially between $100 and $500 a parking space is what staff was able to find for communities throughout the Bay Area where you had to pay for a separate parking space. So given all that, it's recommended by the Community Development Department and the Planning Commission that the council introduce and conduct the first reading of an ordinance to implement the TOC policy requirements and create those 2 new zoning districts. I'm available for any questions. And that concludes my presentation.
Great, thanks. Council questions? Start with Councilmember Harvey.
Noah, help me again on the Oliver's site. That one always makes me real nervous because everybody in this community, and in fact, the whole area of Sonoma County loves Oliver's, and so it is a little disconcerting to make it seem like that's going to be torn down for housing. So help me remember that conversation that we had about that.
So these districts are all mixed-use districts, and so they allow housing and commercial to go together, to be together on the same properties. And they would allow more commercial development to occur in this location on the Oliver site. So if somebody wanted to build another, maybe a store up front, this would allow that, just given the rules. Or if somebody wanted to add housing to the site, this would allow that. How it would occur is likely to be a separate freestanding building or potentially second floors added to the current shopping center.
Okay, so we have no intent of tearing that whole thing down by changing the zoning on this to put housing in. That
Absolutely
is not the intent here.
Absolutely
Okay.
not.
I just want, because I think this came up once before when we had this discussion, but it always makes me nervous when I see that particular site on there.
Yeah, I have a question about the TOC radius, half mile, and a lot of that is in Roanoke Park, City of Roanoke Park. Is there coordination, or do we get impacted if there's no changes in areas we don't have jurisdiction in?
So that's a good question. So we notified Roanoke Park of our process. We would expect them to notify us of their process. One of the things that was recognized by ABAG MTC when they came up with these policies is they allow jurisdictions to exempt parcels that are developed with an existing house. So that's what we did. That's why there's only those 8 parcels separate from Santero Way, because somebody who has an existing home or it's an existing residential neighborhood, it doesn't make sense to make that all of a sudden a commercial or potentially commercial district. While I can't speak for Roanoke Park, I imagine any planner who is looking to make land use changes would definitely consider that as a part of what parcels they were proposing to change.
But a follow-up question on that. So is our scoring fully compliant dependent on the parcels within a half mile of our station all being subject to TOC compliant land use codes? In other words, like, is our eligibility for One Bay Area funding dependent on Roanoke Park bringing their parcels up to TOC standards?
So ours has nothing to do with Roanoke Park. They recognize that if it's not in our jurisdiction, we have no control over it.
Okay, great. Anything else? Councilmember Sparks.
I just had a few little questions. First was regarding the mobility hub and the transit station uses. Can you explain it? It said that those were allowed uses in the TOC zone, but not in the Santero Way zone. But it looks on the border as though the train station is in the Santero Way zone.
Oh.
So I was curious why.
Yeah, so it's to make a distinction. So the the Santero Way neighborhood is within the boundary of the Santero Way specific plan, but that plan itself is broken into 2 districts. One is the TOC, which is where transit hubs are, which is where the train station is on a TOC parcel, and then the ones that are further to the south that are all residential developed or south of those homes, that's the Santero Way proposed zoning.
It looked a little different than that on the map.
I can
But
try to
yeah.
bring the slides back up. Yeah, so it's hard to see. This one doesn't include the.
Yeah, that one shows the specific plan area.
Yeah,
not-
I think I
not
can
this.
show here. So the teal colored are the TOC. And so the train station, you can see the little train symbol in the teal. And then it's the blue ones. I apologize for the different hash marks, but it's the blue
Okay, I
all the
was
way
just
south, yeah.
having trouble reading that. Sorry about
And-
that. Okay, that makes sense.
And the black as well there, right, is part of the already developed is in
Yes,
this
correct,
Santero Way? Okay.
correct.
And then I had a question about the comment that came in with the regarding the industrial uses. Would a recycling facility or some business similar to that be a permitted use?
Yeah, I'd have to look in the specific land use tables, but I do not believe we included recycle facility in the tables. I'll double check right now.
And then one more question was regarding the parking maximums for commercial. Would there be any effect on, say, the Oliver's shopping complex of those parking maximums? It's like a maximum of 1 spot for
Yes.
250 square feet of
Yeah,
commercial
so existing
space?
development that was built legally is existing non-conforming. It's no problem. It's just
Okay.
future development has to comply.
Okay,
And I can confirm there are no recycling facilities allowed in any of this zoning.
okay, great, thank you.
And that's identified on page 145 of the packet.
I had just a question about the unbundled parking issue. So the staff report describes the recommendation as to allow unbundled parking citywide, but the red line says off-street residential parking spaces shall be unbundled in the SW and TOC zones.
Oh,
So I'm curious
it was, that was a typo or a mistake in the staff report. It is only proposed in the TOC, and that's the recommendation from the commission, was to include it only in the TOC area. So the staff report is incorrect.
and so How about the, not the SW zone either? Or,
It would have been in the, so anywhere within the TOC half-mile radius.
okay.
So the two new zoning districts.
So the sort of thing you want us to think about is whether we want to include that at all. So the proposed city, it's not proposed citywide.
Correct.
And it's, so then the other difference is allowed versus shall be unbundled. It says in the staff report, allow unbundled parking, and the red line says shall be
Yes,
unbundled.
the direction from, I apologize for the staff report language. The direction from ABAG MTC is shall unbundle.
Okay.
But again, it's a 1 point.
Yeah, got it. And on that scoring thing, I know you were hoping to get some feedback before tonight, but like, do you anticipate with this proposed set of policies, we're at the 85, 86 on the bundle border, or are we 92 and like don't need to worry about a point?
It's hard to say because it will be subject to their interpretation, but staff's writing of these policies, and I have had some back and forth, was to gain 100% compliance.
Okay, thanks. All right, any more questions before we take public comment? Oh, go ahead.
I just have one more question, follow on to Councilmember Harvey's concern about Oliver's complex, and I'm looking at these parking minimums and things like that. So if something were to be constructed there, some additional structure, what would happen in terms of the parking requirement associated with that new structure?
The city would have no minimum parking requirement.
So they could demolish part of the parking lot and build something in the middle of it and
Correct.
provide no replacement spots?
Correct.
It's a little bit concerning to me. Is there, what would it, currently that parcel is zoned as commercial or
Yeah, I think it's, we call it Commercial East Cotati Corridor.
commercial East Cotati corridor? Just for curiosity, I'm sorry for not asking you this before the meeting, but what would it do to our score if that parcel was excluded, or would that be completely unallowable in this program?
Yeah, I'd have to, the compliance kind of framework was attached to the staff report. I believe it's around 90 pages, so I'd have to do some analysis to give you a good answer.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any more questions? All right, we'll open up to public comment. Let's start in the chambers. Anybody wishing to comment on the implementation of the TOC policies? Now's the time. Do we have any speaker cards? No, okay.
When you say comment, does that mean we can ask questions about this?
Yeah, so you get 3 minutes now to say whatever you like, including people do often ask questions, and we can't respond to the questions during the public comment time, but we will make note of them and answer any that we're able to when the public comment time is over. So we can't do a back and forth, but you're welcome to. Come on up.
My name's Cindy Steffi. I live across the street from one of the proposed developments on Centero Way. And you're right about the parking. It's just insane there. People come over to visit me. They may end up at the parking lot down by the train station, which I love. I love being there. I think one of the reasons I'm here is I have received the notices, thank you, in the mail, but I've been trying to wrap my head around this map to try to understand what's going on in my general vicinity. And I've always understood that this would be mixed use. So I guess my question is, I'm not sure what's going on or what's going in across the street from me where the vacant lot is. And looking at your, I guess I can see it here, looking at your map, is there a bigger map? The map with all the lines that were on it? Okay, I'm trying to figure out, yes, close. I see where the park is, but those lines that were teal and, there we go. So the green lines there, where the yellow is, I understand that's Centero Way, correct? Okay. And then the teal, is that the ones with the black stripe going through it? Are those proposed parcels or applicable or?
Yeah, those are parcels where the new TOC zoning designation would apply,
Okay.
existing.
The greenish,
Greenish north of that is where the TOC zoning would apply, and the blue south of that is where the Centero Way zoning would apply.
okay. So the black is the existing development.
Right.
And above the black, what is that? Are those just vacant lots?
Right.
Okay, so then the park down the street from the black then, correct?
The
The
park
city
is in,
park.
the park is also in teal on here, I believe. It's across from the narrow strip of black there on the left.
Okay. So would mixed-use housing go in on Santero Way?
Sorry, why don't you tell us whatever you need to about, you're running out of time, so I just want to make sure you let us know what your
Sure, I'm sorry.
issues are, so we can take them into our.
Of course. I'm trying to figure out if mixed-use housing is going in across the street from me, and how high the buildings could be. That's one of my other concerns. I think I'll just leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Quick, do you mean
No, I mean, when I say mixed use, I mean commercial.
with commercial? Okay.
Yes. Is that clear enough?
Thanks, yes,
Okay.
thank you. Anybody else in the room?
Hi, everyone. My name is Evan. I own the tattoo shop in Katati. I've been working with Noah and others to kind of like work to add this to the end, and I know it's not really what this meeting is about, but I just want to kind of put out there that if all of this isn't happening, if there is still the opportunity to kind of change this zoning thing, I would really, really be, passionate about it. We really want to bring something artistic and beautiful to the community, and want to make sure that even if this being attached to this much larger, more complicated than my pay grade situation, it is still a considered part of changing the zoning districts and everything.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else in the chambers?
Hi, Lori Ann Barber, Katati resident, and I haven't been following this closely, and I don't have anything like really great to say, but I am happy to see the city moving in the direction of no parking minimums that's right, and denser housing and affordable housing. It seems like a good zoning ordinance to me, so thank you for you all looking at it, and thanks for all the work over here.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? All right, let's move to Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, Zoom attendees, please use that raise hand icon to make a public comment. The first hand is from Lori. You have the floor.
I told you I taught the people online all the issues. I was basically said what Noah House said. I'm a little confused on this unbundled with the staff report and all, and it being citywide. Does that mean here over on the west side I can put in a parking lot for $50 a month for my spaces on our half acre? Since it's citywide. Anyway, that's my comment. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Mayor Ford, there are no further hands on Zoom.
All right.
That will end public comment.
Great, thanks. So let's see if we can answer a few of the questions that came up. I'll just mention, so we got clarity that the citywide in the staff report for the unbundled parking proposal was an error. It's actually only proposed in the TOC and SW zones. Okay, and that's a discussion we'll have to have about whether to include that. So do you want to address the question about like what could go in those, in the teal?
Yeah, so it is proposed to be mixed use, which does mean a mix of residential and commercial. We have approved a 100-unit apartment project on that site called Katati Station. It was approved a few years ago, and it included ground floor coffee shop, a gym, and maybe a daycare. I'm going from memory, but so there was a cafe, gym, and I believe a daycare proposed in the ground floor of that. The owners of that property have said they are not proposing to build that. That will not go forward. And so the property is for sale. We have talked to some developers who are interested in purchasing that, and they're watching this process. And if they purchase it, they are likely to pursue a similar project, residential, likely 3 to 4 stories, because that's what's going to be required to get this density level, with ground floor commercial of some type. When we were going through this Santero Way specific plan process, we were looking to try to find amenities that would provide neighborhood serving uses, like a restaurant, like a cafe, maybe a gym, but then also something that would benefit from the proximity to the train station. So that's kind of how we looked at the type of uses that are proposed to be allowed. And then I'm happy to have one-on-one conversations with anybody in the neighborhood to kind of vet it. And we've also have some concept renderings from that development team as to what types of projects they're considering. If they do propose that, it'll have to go through a full public process. We'll have a lot of input on the design and a lot of input on what uses go there, but I have some conceptual ideas that they're considering that I'm happy to share.
And what is the height limit?
Good question. There is a proposed height limit in the zoning code for both districts, and it is 45 feet. So 4 stories, and then 55 foot with a use permit. So the idea was, if there was a certain project design that needed that extra height, it would have the tool to ask for it. And one of the things we were also looking for, and we've had this conversation, is a lot of the changes to the state law allow developers to add additional height kind of by right if they meet certain affordability requirements. And so we were trying to give kind of a relief valve to them running straight to those state law allowances to continue to work with us through a process that we have that would also allow them to request it from the city and not have to instantly take advantage of those by right allowances from the state.
Great. Other question? Yeah.
No, just a clarification, because you just said that if something was put forward, it would go through a public process and everyone, but with a lot of the new state laws that have come down, that is not really a process that people are used to, where we really get to say very much. So depending upon the bonus density levels that they ask for and the concessions they ask for and so on and so forth, with the way all of the laws are changing, we may not have much say at all, depending upon what the project. I don't want to give, I'm worried about giving people a false sense of that they'll have a lot of say in what goes there, because it depends on what gets brought forward. Am I incorrect in that?
No, you are correct, and I think that's an important thing to highlight that I was trying to point to with the early parts of the presentation, where the state has taken away of a lot of the city's local control. The city has responded in ways that the state has still allowed our control through things like our objective design standards. So we've adopted these design expectations with the goal that developers have to meet them. But to Councilmember Harvey's point, developers have these kind of abilities to ask for concessions from those standards if they can demonstrate that they need it to build their housing. And so Councilmember Harvey's point is good for the community to understand that although we do have a lot of regulations and the process might be public, the city does not have the ability to stop certain elements of projects if they are proposing housing.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
All right, so back to the council for discussion. One of the issues we need to talk about is whether to include the unbundled parking requirement in the new zones. But anything is open. Vice Mayor Lemus.
Yeah, I had heard about it, and then I went and watched Planning Commission meeting, and I wanted to kind of learn more about, the unbundled parking, did some research on it. And I feel like, for one point, it's an affordability issue and an equity issue. So I would be in favor of not having unbundled parking. That's my thought on it.
Others?
I have not ever seen a landlord not take advantage of making more money rather than the example that was put out there, that they would lower the rent if they unbundled it and charged. No, they would be looking at this as an opportunity to earn more money. So I don't feel like it would work in the way in which that it was intended to work. I think people will just raise the current rents and say, I can charge for that parking space. And I agree with you that I think that the folks that it will hurt most are the people that can least afford that. And we already have issues with parking in the community. And certainly as we densify a lot of this stuff, there's just not street parking for all of these people. So it would, I think, disadvantage people that couldn't afford for that parking space. They may have to park, a mile away and walk to their units. So I agree. I wouldn't want to see that unbundled.
Go ahead.
I wanted a little clarification on the unbundling. Was there ever discussion of mandated parking unbundling as part of this? And now it's changed to just simply allow unbundled parking, or has it always been just allowing unbundled parking?
Yeah, so it's the city can, or it's the policy direction is parking shall be unbundled. So the goal that ABAG MTC had is that if you have a unit for rent, there's a price point with parking and a price point without parking that's lower.
Is it allowable right now for people to unbundle their parking if they want to?
The city does not have any regulation against it, but we do have parking minimums that would have had to been applied for the development when it was constructed.
Okay. I think I am not in favor of mandating unbundled parking as part of this I agree with the other comments.
Yeah, I'm fine with not including it in the package for now. The argument for it is if you're in a neighborhood with a lot of people who are commuting by transit and don't own a car, then it's silly for them all to take up a parking space that nobody else can use when it could be better used. So there's sort of a theory that it would be a more efficient use of the space to unbundle it and allow those who have cars to pay the money for it. We are not currently in that situation, I think, where we have a large number of people in the neighborhood who don't own cars. I do think that like the requirement, our parking minimums that were in place for all of the existing projects, it wasn't each unit shall have 1.5 parking spaces, right? So there was never a parking space tied to a unit requirement imposed by the city. So there are many places that have shared parking in a shared parking lot that don't have assigned spots. I live in one of them. So I think somebody could work out a more efficient use of the space if the market demands it. And so that's sort of a point that hasn't come up today in talking about parking in general. The fear is people are going to build big housing units and not provide any parking. The theory is that nobody would rent those places because they wouldn't have any place to park, and so the market will correct for that possibility. We'll see, I guess, and that's the theory. And another theory, I think, is that we have to, in order to make it less desirable to drive everywhere, we're going to have to make it less comfortable to drive everywhere, and so that's the path we're mandated to follow if we want to be able to continue to fix our streets. And I'm okay with trying that myself. So I agree with people to drop the unbundled parking for now. We could bring it back if we get to the place where half the people over there don't own cars and don't want to be paying for a parking space anymore. We can reconsider it. Yeah.
And I would add to that, we have still a long ways to go on our public transportation. It is sorely lacking, and while we keep trying on making it better, it's not there yet either.
Any other discussion? Are there any other issues we should be talking explicitly about? Oh, Councilmember Sparks.
Just more discussion. I have to apologize. This is on me for not understanding this fully until now, but I wasn't fully grasping what the impact could be on that shopping center on East Cotati, which is just such a vital commercial space for our community. So I'm recognizing I can't get a full analysis of this on the fly because I should have been looking at that sooner. But is there an urgent need to pass this tonight? Are there deadlines that we're going to miss, or?
So originally, staff was on a decision timeline that would get us ready for essentially February, when they were going to start announcing grant applications. However, ABAG MTC has pushed that back. I don't know the specific dates to it. I'll leave it at that. I don't, the urgency that was originally being communicated by ABAG MTC has been pushed, but I don't have the details.
Okay, so it's possible that delaying could have some impact, but might not, given that they've pushed it back.
Correct. Although I will say I do believe that having this in place earlier than most other jurisdictions, which is the why ABAG NTC pushed it back, nobody else was ready, will make us more competitive.
Okay. I just have some concerns about that shopping center, and I don't feel comfortable right now without understanding fully what the impact is going to be in moving forward. I don't know how you all feel about that.
Yeah, if it's the first hearing, can we still do more research and come back at the second hearing, make adjustments to it?
You could reduce the scope and keep it on the decision track, yes. So essentially, if between now and the second reading, I do the research and provide you with the information, and you choose to reduce the scope of the changes, that is still able to move forward through the process.
We just can't add new things in, but we can take things out.
Correct.
Okay.
I will say that zoning, that property is currently zoned mixed use and allows residential on it. Doesn't have the minimum parking changes that are proposed, and the density is 15 units to the acre, so it's a different density. But it's still a mixed-use zoning district that does allow residential, currently.
Is it currently subject to some of these state by right rights? So I guess my concern that I don't understand is, by changing this zoning, are we opening it up to by right projects that we have very little control over, where currently we would have more control?
I hear you. It's not, so a lot of those, the purely by right projects are on residential parcels, but some of them are specific to affordable housing regardless of the underlying zoning. So this is not a residential parcel, it's a mixed-use parcel. So those by right state laws that are residential in nature are not, this parcel is not subject to those. However, it is subject to the by right, I can put affordable housing anywhere, essentially, that the state law has now allowed. It is subject to that currently.
If I have the support of the rest of the council on this, I'd like to ask that we direct staff to look into that and bring us back a little more information about that for the second reading, if you all are on board.
Go ahead.
The reason I brought it up is I've been worried about this parcel, since we first started having the workshops and stuff on it. It just makes me extremely nervous, if you will, that we're taking our prime and only shopping center in our community, and somebody that doesn't care about our community can come in and tear the whole thing down and, put whatever on there. That kind of makes me a little nervous.
And to be clear, I don't think my concern is quite as I'm not quite as frightened about it being torn down as much as just, the impacts that adding high density housing to it could have, and I just want to understand it. Yeah.
Did you want to respond at all, or?
No, I see their concerns. There's the old theater in the back that I could see some type of conversion happening there that would impact the whole area there, and it could slowly kind of creep into the rest of that site. So I see their concerns. So yeah, I'd be interested in looking at what Noah had mentioned about maybe reviewing it, research it, maybe modifying the scope for the next one, maybe.
And I don't share the same concerns, but I'm happy to try to get it. It's probably good as a sort of a case study. Like, here's what it would mean for one parcel, what it could mean for one parcel, because I think we're kind of missing the fact, as Noah said, it is currently redevelopable with a whole lot of units with very little parking. Somebody could come in and, right now. So this change isn't quite, I think, as scary as it feels when we think, oh, it's either Oliver's or it's, 35 units an acre or something like that. So, but I'm happy to, I'd like to keep the to go ahead and approve the first reading and introduce it and move forward. But I'd love to see that case study. Sorry to put more work on you.
And I just want to be clear for anyone listening that these are all just us thinking through possible ramifications way down the line of some zoning changes. There's nothing like this has been proposed, just to be clear. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, anything else? All right, anybody wish to make a motion?
I make a motion that we introduce and conduct the first reading of an ordinance to create the Santero Way and transit-oriented communities zoning districts, to make additional zoning amendments to implement the transit-oriented communities policy requirements from ABAG MTC, and to make other clarifying changes to the Cotati Municipal Code. And I believe we do not want the unbundled. Do I have to add that? Or
As amended by council.
okay, that's my motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thanks, that carries 4-0. Thank you all. So now we're to our regular agenda. To item 8B, this is council assignments as representatives and liaisons to various committees for calendar year 2025. And let's start with the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Every year, the City Council reviews assignments to committees, commissions, and other regional assignments that are directly appointed by the City Council. So attached to the staff report, there's a summary table. It has a summary of all the current members and the alternates for each one of the appointed positions. And then following that, as a secondary attachment, is an expanded, more detail about each one of the appointments. I will say that we do have a couple council members that are on some statewide Cal City committees. Councilmember Harvey and Vice Mayor Lemus have been serving also on Cal City's committees. That isn't on this table. And Councilmember Sparks has been approved by the City Council for an extended leave of absence from January 26th to May 11th in 2026. So the alternate appointee for those committees, where Councilmember Sparks is the primary, will need to attend those meetings in her place for the duration of the leave. So just to be aware of that. And then finally, I'll just add that I also had Councilmember Savage sent me a comment that he is good with the current assignments, but if it helps, he can pick up a couple of additional ones if the council needs that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Go ahead, Vice Mayor Lemus.
Not a question, but I think if we have an assignment that we're willing to kind of transfer over to Councilmember Savage, is that the time to discuss it now?
No, after public comment.
After public comment, okay.
Discussion of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also I did forget to neglect that the way the recommendation is framed here is that the council could make a decision tonight, or we could have initial conversations and we can make the decision in January when we come back. So whatever the council's comfortable with.
Yeah, so this is, when we have a council turnover at the end of the year, we always do it the first meeting of the year, but since we have no turnover, we get to talk about it now without the time pressure. So we can either reach decision now or not. If there are no more questions, we'll take public comment before coming back for discussion. Okay, we'll start in the chambers. Anybody wishing to comment on City Council appointments and assignments for 2020, should say 6. Not seeing any. Let's check online.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon if you'd like to make a public comment on this item. Seeing no hands, Mayor Ford, that will end public comment.
Great. So, love to hear discussions about any interest in other appointments than you've currently got, or if you're ready to be done with one, or anything like that. And also, maybe, Councilmember Sparks, if you can talk us through what will need some coverage while you're away, that would be great.
Sure. So I'm happy to continue serving on the school 2x2x2x2 and the Water Advisory Council. I did speak with Mayor-elect Lemus. Who said that she would be willing to serve while I was absent on the Water Advisory Committee as the alternate. In terms of the Homeless Coalition Board alternate position, I will not be able to attend those meetings during the first half of the year, and it's also becoming a little more difficult for me to keep my Wednesdays teaching schedule free. So if anyone would be willing to take that over, that alternate position for next year, that would be fantastic.
Is that?
It's usually on Wednesdays. It was
During the day? Or?
yeah, like 1 to 5 on Wednesday. I haven't had to attend very frequently, but yeah, it's the middle of the day on Wednesday.
Can you remind me the kind of agreement with Roner Park on that? Will Councilmember Elward stay primary until, do we have any kind of agreement on time frame?
Maybe the city manager Obik could remind us about that.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be an annual process where both cities have a conversation about it, and then decide if we continue with the current primary and alternate, or we want to switch it up. The last, originally it was Councilmember Moore for Cotati, and then when his term was done, Councilmember Elward from Roner Park took it over, and she has been the primary now for 2 or maybe 3 years, something like maybe 2 years. Yeah. So anyway, it's supposed to be an annual conversation, which hasn't. It hasn't happened yet, to my knowledge.
Okay, thanks. Vice Mayor Lemus.
So I'd be interested if, putting my hat in the ring of, I don't know, other council members.
So maybe I could propose that we do the rest of the appointments. If people are comfortable doing it tonight, we could do it tonight, and then have a conversation with Roner Park to propose having council member or Mayor-elect Lemus take over, or see if we want to swap and maybe come back in January to finalize that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. So other discussions about interests, or everybody
Well,
good with their current appointments?
well, there was one that I did talk to Councilmember Savage about if he was interested in the legislative committee, mayor's and council legislative committee. That's once a month.
Is that on our list? Oh, yeah, there it is. No.
Yeah, it's on there. It's the 4th item down from regional.
Oh, I see. So usually if the primary is interested in stepping aside, sort of the first option goes to the person who's been serving as alternate. But I don't know if you have interest, Councilmember Sparks.
I don't think
Yeah,
that
okay.
it's wise, since I'm going to be gone for several months.
Good reason. So should we propose Councilmember Savage for that one? Is that
Yes,
your
we can
preference?
I'll propose him, and then we'll confirm in January.
And then, as a follow-up
Yep.
question on that, then, Laura, do
You want to get your mic? Get your mic.
Sorry, Laura, would you want to stay as alternate, or?
I think that's really up to the council. If you feel comfortable having me as alternate, assuming he's going to be able to attend in the first few months, I'm happy to continue serving as alternate when I return. But if you want to appoint someone else, that's fine with me.
Well, maybe then, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to suggest maybe for this next year, maybe John be the primary and Sylvia be the alternate.
I can definitely do that.
Was that?
Sure.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Give you a little bit of breathing room.
I'm happy to continue On the Russian River Watershed Association Board, I'm still on the Measure O Oversight Committee. I can't remember, did I get reappointed to that, or? Yeah, I think I did recently. Yeah, okay, so I'm on for another couple of years. That's right.
It says 1227.
Okay,
So
okay, thanks.
you've got-
And Mayor Ford, you've had excellent attendance on that board, so do you want a better alternate than me who will be
So
here?
that board meets once quarterly, so
Okay.
you'll miss one meeting,
Okay,
and I'll be there,
okay,
so we're good.
perfect.
There you go. And I'm happy with my assignments.
And I'm happy to keep the rest of my assignments. I have ABAG, the Sonoma Clean Power, Cotati Chamber of Commerce. And then the new one, which is the new one? I was going to just cover for alternate, that's right. I was covering for alternate.
Right, for the Water Advisory. Committee.
Yes.
But that's just during the leave? Okay. Do you think you've captured all those?
Yes, so what I have is Councilmember Savage taking the primary on the Ledge Committee with Vice Mayor Lemus moving to alternate on that. And then Vice Mayor Lemus taking the alternate on the Homeless Coalition Board as proposed changes, and I'll just bring this back in January, the January 13th meeting to.
And also, Vice Mayor Lemus being our Water Advisory Committee rep while Councilmember Sparks is on leave?
Yeah, I don't think that changes the table, though.
Okay, just
She would just. step
serving
up.
as alternate. Okay, great.
Yeah. And also, I'll also inquire with Rohnert Park to confirm the Homeless Coalition alternate, primary and alternate. But the way it's structured right now is Councilmember Elward with Rohnert Park would continue as the primary, and really what I'd be asking them is to add the alternate.
Is there a time frame? I'm just curious, for COC primaries or alternates?
I mean, it's an annual conversation with Rohnert Park, if that's what you mean, in terms of the appointments.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay. I mean, I'd be interested in being primary if that's a possibility.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The COC, right? Yeah. If it's already been in Rohnert Park's hands for a few years.
It has.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to,
Yeah.
both
Alternate?
cities are supposed to approve the slate of the primary and the alternate each year.
Yep.
So we should have a
Reach out.
conversation with
Okay.
Rohnert
But I don't
Park.
think we have a clear method to have the conversation.
No, we
'cause
don't.
We can't have a conversation as councils. So maybe,
Through city managers?
if you talk with the city manager there, propose a conversation between the mayors and.
Yeah, it
city
was a
managers.
mayoral, like mayor-to-mayor conversation. If that doesn't resolve, then there was you go back to respective councils and have a conversation about it. That's the general outline of it. But if Vice Mayor Lemus, if you're interested in serving as primary, I certainly can start that conversation with them. Yeah. And then
So I can reach out to her and have a conversation?
I'll start with the city manager,
Okay.
and then we can pull the mayors in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and since Councilmember Savage isn't here and several of the appointments, of course, involve him, I think it makes sense just to bring the whole thing back in January, having had these discussions. Okay, great. Anything more on that item? Okay, let's go on to item 8C, the proclamation schedule for 2026.
Okay, so in July of 2023, the City Council adopted a recognition and flag policy and also initial schedule of proclamations, and then the council has subsequently updated this annually. The most recent table for 2025 is attached. There were some updates to that, which I'll just run through real quick. So the table that's attached to the staff report is the 2025 table with some edits to it. So International Day of Peace was moved to as requested. It was previously Councilmember Rivers' item. Flags were removed from the Latino Heritage and Indigenous Peoples Day because we don't have flags for those, or at least I'm not aware of any. We added the Trans Remembrance Month and assigned Councilmember Savage as the lead on that. Pride Month lead was moved from Sparks to Savage based on how it worked this year. The flag was removed from the Moose proclamation item. Disability Employment Month was moved to as requested. The Polio Awareness Day was moved to as requested. So those are the changes from the originally adopted 25 schedule that is in the packet. Also, just wanted to also throw out there for a conversation about how we want to advertise the proclamations, specifically the proclamations where the city council or staff are indicated as organizing leads. So currently, right now, what happens is when the council adopts a proclamation, the text of the proclamation is put on the city website headline following the council meeting. However, the recommendation from staff, and this is for council to discuss and give direction on, is if we should modify that and modify it so that if the city council or staff are indicated as organizing leads on that table, the full text of the proclamation will continue to be posted on the city website headlines, but we'll also do the photo, like the photo with the recipient of the proclamation. And that would also go on social media to elevate the visibility of these proclamations that the council supports. Other proclamations that are requested by outside groups, like the annual surveyor proclamation, these kind of things, wouldn't be posted on the website or social media unless the council during the proclamation specifically requests it to be elevated in terms of its distribution on the website or the social media or both. So two things. One is just looking at the table, make sure the council is happy with the table as it's proposed in the attached to the staff report. And then also just some feedback on the public distribution of the proclamations and photos and things after adoption. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Okay. Let's take public comment, and we'll start online. So public comment on the proclamation schedule for 2026.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon if you'd like to comment on this item. There are no hands on Zoom. Mayor Ford.
Anybody in the chambers? Okay, not seeing any. That'll end public comment. Come back for discussion. Any comments? Everybody okay with the schedule? Councilmember Sparks.
Thank you. For this year, I'd like to be removed as the organizing lead for Women's History Month. And, because I won't be here. And also there's a typo in November, the Transgender Remembrance Day. There's no either. Shouldn't be an either. It should be remembrance rather than remember.
The third E should be removed.
The third E should be the third of four.
Thank you. Anybody willing to pick up the Women's History Month proclamation for this year?
I can take it.
Okay, great. Thank you. And the main task for those that don't involve a flag and flag ceremony is finding somebody to come and receive and
Okay.
receive it. Right? Okay, great.
And also just some input that I support that they, that any organizing lead, that staff or council, that they do a little promotion for the residents and the community. Thank you. Yeah. That'd be
Yeah,
great.
I like that change in policy. Get it on social media. That's great. Anything else? Okay. So do you think we need to bring this back at a future meeting, or can we just approve the schedule?
I think it could be approved tonight if
Yeah.
the council's ready.
Anybody want to move to approve it?
I make a motion that we approve the public awareness process and the proclamation schedule for 2026 with the noted changes by council.
Second. Oh.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries 4-0. Thank you. Are we good to go, or does anybody need a 5-minute break? Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break. All right, welcome back from recess. We're now at item 8D, the 2026 Veranda Folletti Ranch Work Plans and New License Agreement. And we'll start with the staff report.
All right, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. So this item has a couple different components, and or several components. One is there's a draft work plan that's here for approval, the 2026 work plan for the Veranda Folletti Ranch. There's also a request to authorize me to execute the 3-year license agreement with agriculture to operate the livestock, horticulture, compost, and other related programs. And then the third action is authorizing me to amend the license agreement with Sandy Loam to synchronize the term dates and other minor edits as approved by the city attorney. There's also a request for a budget amendment because of the work plan years are calendar years. Obviously our budgets are fiscal years, so there'll let us sync with some of the changes that's being proposed for the 2026 plan. And tonight we do have representatives from both Sandy Loam and Aquaculture. So we have Bryce here tonight from agriculture, and then Sandy Loam is represented by Ashwarya and Happy, that's sitting next to her. So they're available for any questions that might come up. Sandy Loam and agriculture both work closely with the city to come up with the programming and the design out there, and they've both been excellent partners in running the ranch and all the different community programs that we have there. In 2026, they submitted the joint work plan, which is, as I mentioned, attached to the staff report. And this plan is tailored to focus on areas of community interest and integration between the licensees and city input on priorities to develop a mix of paid, low-cost, and free programming, with continuing focus on fiscal sustainability as we continue to move through the work plans. And in this, so Sandy Loam continues to they're the overall lead operator for the property, just basic maintenance and control, management of the property. And just as you might recall, agriculture, their first year was this current calendar year. And Bryce has done an excellent job there. And so we're proposing to enter into a longer-term license agreement. He had just an interim 1-year license, so we're looking at we're proposing a 3-year license agreement. And the main elements of the work plan, I won't go through it all in detail. Obviously, you can ask questions if you have any. But agriculture will be focused in this proposed work plan to expand the food production and CSA box program, continue to run the compost hub in partnership with Zero Waste Sonoma, focus on the animal husbandry, including an expanded chicken flock, and what's proposed is 8 low-cost workshops through the year, Farm Fridays, working with Sandy Loam on Farm Fridays as well as the Fall Festival, and the city is also part of the Fall Festival, and then youth programs and volunteer work. Sandy Loam, as I mentioned, they have the overall ranch management. They're proposing to continue to expand their fruit, flower, herb, and adding this year some small-scale honey production. The Teen Apprentice Program, after school enrichment, spring, summer, and fall camps, farm product workshops, a variety of different farm product workshops. They also, as I mentioned earlier with agriculture, they also do the Farm Fridays, Fall Festival, but flower and herbal tea and holiday crafts are some other things that they also do. There's, you'll note in the work plan, there's this health and well-being program it's being introduced potentially in 2026, but it's contingent on looking for funding, like grants or program funding partners. So that will also be a focus this year. In terms of the overall revenue and generation, it's based on what you see in the work plan is based on the programming. We also, although it's not shown here in parallel, we also do intend to pursue grants and also other funding partners. That's not none of that's obviously been actually awarded or approved at this point, so we're not proposing it in the work plan, but that's also an effort that we plan to do to hopefully further develop additional programming, offset additional ongoing costs, and so forth. So for 2026, the proposed work plan includes total expenditures of $324,000, which is an increase of over $100,000 from the current work plan year. However, the increase in expenditures is expected to be offset by about $180,000 in revenue. So the net city expenditure would be $143,000 is what's being anticipated, and it's relatively conservative based on numbers and costs. That would be, just to put it in perspective, there's that's about a $25,000 reduction in the city's contribution from this current work plan year in net, and also we have about 20% cost recovery in the current work plan. This is a little over 50% cost recovery in the proposed plan. With that, I will just close by saying that we are also going to be continuing to develop methods of payment to make things more easily enrollable. Like, for example, the CSA Box program, as we were piloting in this year, was one of the friction points, is because right now we use RecDesk, but you have to sign up for it. And so we've been talking about coming up with better ways to enroll people in CSA that's less cumbersome, you know. And so we're continuing to refine that. And also, I touched on this earlier, but continuing to refine the programs that we offer based on, you know, now several years of offering different programs, seeing what the community is interested in, tracking attendance on the different programs, and hearing what people want to see, but maybe we haven't offered it in the past. And so this is the product of now many years of continual iteration and refinement on the programming out there. And I'll just stop there, but I'm happy to answer any questions. As I mentioned, we have Sandy Loam and Agriculture in the audience if you have any questions for them. Thank you.
Questions from council members? Councilmember Sparks.
Thank you. I was really happy to see the farm field trips on the work plan, and I see on the revenue by item estimation, it's estimating 2 school groups, and I know we'd had trouble kind of finding public schools that were interested in participating in the past. Have we been able to find some partners, or is that we kind of just hoping to find people who are interested?
Feel free to come up if you've got an answer.
And I won't run away this time. Yes, I do that every year. So we launched the program on a very soft level this past year. We had a couple of field trips, partly enabled through our partnership with Point Blue. As you'll see in the work plan, we have a new team member joining us over the summer, and Ariana Schwallenberg, and she is very deeply connected with all of the schools in the Petaluma City Schools and also in Cotati and Broner Park. And she's going to have her master's in school counseling, and so she's currently doing rotations and building those relationships for us. So we expect it to be a successful program.
Thank you so much. That's great.
Is that good?
Other questions?
Okay.
All right. I think
Thank you.
the questions have all been answered. So we'll take public comment. We'll start in the room. Anybody wishing to speak on the 2026 work plans for the Veranda Filetti Ranch and the contracts? Not seeing any. Let's go to Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment. The first hand is from Lori. You have the floor.
Hi. When I was a young and kid and teenager in Cotati, I did work on the farms here on the west side. But now any kind of garden, gophers within days, and will take down anything. Turkeys, Steve the peacock, the deer will take it down. So I'm wondering if there's a way to incorporate some more, not sustainable gardening, but how to have neighborhood gardens and dealing with all these vermins that are raccoons on the west side, because it just it does. I'm glad I wanted to make sure though too that you're not sending the cows off again. I don't want to organize Save the Cows again, so that's what I want to check on that. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
And there are no further hands on Zoom. Mayor Ford, that will end public comment.
Great. So I'm wondering, Bryce, if you'd like to respond to the question about gardening with gophers. I don't know what you call it. Maybe not that.
Thank you.
And
I actually am going to be presenting a series of workshops around gardening and small-scale farming. One of those is garden critters, introduction to integrated pest management. So attendees will get some basics on how to deal with the various critters that are both beneficial but also the ones that are considered pests. And I've now had 10 months of experience with the types of critters that we deal with, and from turkeys to gophers. Haven't seen raccoons yet, and fortunately no deer within the ranch. The cows are not going anywhere. They're happy and healthy. They just had their annual vet checkup at the beginning or mid-November. All the livestock got their annual vaccinations and well check completed. So, yeah.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, so back to council for discussion. Anything else? Yes, Vice Mayor
Yeah,
Davis.
I'm excited to see the potential for more programming and the outreach and engagement with the community. And I know that will require more funding down the line, so, we'll have to come up with some creative things, but it's exciting to see that, and I appreciate all of your work. Thank you.
Likewise, I love the work plan. Somebody's got some graphic skills, and it's a really exciting work plan. So I'm excited to get out there for some of the classes and workshops and keep picking up our compost. And looks great. Anything else?
I'm glad to see the work plan continue to expand. So I like that you try things out and then, get them fine-tuned and then add. Don't try and do too much at once. So I appreciate, the measured approach to adding things as time goes on.
And I think the work plan looks really good, and I'm just appreciative of the great work that you're all doing out there. So thank you.
Great. I had one question. Where are we at with the match for for our expenditures over the years? Do you know?
So I don't have an exact number, but we're in the mid 2 millions, like 2 million something.
And what's our total obligation?
3.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not that we're going to stop the ranch once we reach the match. Just want to know that we're getting there.
Well, yeah, I mean, what it does is it allows us to apply for it again and continue to do new things.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's
Got
the
it.
benefit.
Got it.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Anybody wish to pass make our motion for the resolution?
I make a motion, we adopt a resolution approving the 2026 work plan for the Veranda Fleddy Ranch, authorizing the city manager to execute a 3-year license agreement with agriculture to operate the livestock, horticulture, compost, and other related programs, substantially in the form attached and subject to final approval by the city attorney, and authorize the city manager to amend the license agreement with Sandy Loam to synchronize the term dates and other minor edits, and authorizing the requested budget amendment.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries 4-0. Thank you so much. All right, that brings us to item 8E, consideration of a resolution adopting a new cross-connection control plan for the city of Cotati as required by the state. start with the staff report.
Mayor, members of the council, Craig Scott, Public Works Director, City Engineer. This item is to, as you mentioned, consider a resolution adopting a cross-connection control plan. So I'd like to start with some just background framework for this discussion, going back, defining the term. So we've got backflow is the undesired condition of unintentional reverse of flow of water or other liquids, gas from private systems back into the public drinking water system, which could potentially contaminate it and cause sicknesses. So backflow prevention is a well-established practice for all public water systems. Prior to 2024, California's regulations for preventing cross connection was California, CCR, California Code of Regulations, Title 17, and that was adopted back in 1987. The city ensures that backflow is prevented through a chapter in our municipal code. It spells it out. Backflow is required under these conditions. It's spelled out in our engineering standards book, volume 1. There's a whole table in there listing hazardous or higher hazard conditions where we would require a backflow. It's all relative, but lots with swimming pools or private wells, or even as of recent decades, the fire prevention sprinkler systems, we've required them through our development process as we develop as we review and process applications for new businesses, new connections to our water system. When it meets those criteria, we require backflows to be installed, and there are very strict requirements and types of devices that would be installed. So nothing about that is new. Okay, I just wanted to establish that. All irrigation services, for example, include those. We have at present, out of our 2,700 total services, we have about 600 and that have backflows on them, and about 40 of those are the city backflows. Our current program consists of ensuring that new services that I mentioned have backflows that are installed when it's appropriate, and then to sort of keep track of making sure each one of those backflows annually is tested and certified. Then a year goes by, tested, certified, and send out letters, make sure that happens, and the costs of all this is on the customer, because these are customer side issues to prevent anything from those private lots from getting back into our system. Okay, so that's the background. Then on October 6, 2017, AB 1671, Assembly Bill 1671 was passed, which amended California's Safe Drinking Water Act. And so that said, hey, State Water Board, you are to develop a cross-connection control handbook, and that is to set policy and take everything that we've been doing and organize it better, I guess, for lack of a better way of explaining it, and putting it all in one document. And so that handbook it's kind of a misnomer. It's a handbook, but its contents are requirements that public water systems must follow, must implement. Okay, and one of those requirements is for all public water systems to prepare and adopt a cross-connection control plan. Okay, that's what's before us tonight. It's mandatory for all public water systems. Okay, so where are we up here? What's new? This is So these are 4 items. We'll take them each individually in the following slides, but initially I just want to go through the list. So like I said, we have an established program already, but what this does is it puts a layer on top of that of additional tasks, duties that we would need to do. First of all, have a formal cross-connection control program. The big one is number 2, conduct hazard assessments, not only of the 600, but of all 2,700 of our services. So you go out to single-family residential development, they have no wells, no pools or anything, and we would have to do a hazard assessment on that property, just like anybody else, even though they're very low risk. Then records management, so keeping track of all these hazard assessments that are done within the first 5 years, and then when they get triggered by certain things, they have to be done again. So it's this whole records management, keeping data and keeping all that organized on where we are with each one of these backflows, as well as reporting enforcement actions. So today we have, obviously, the means to enforce if a backflow comes back and it's failed its certification. You know, we'll give warnings, and there's a certain grace period that goes by, but ultimately we can shut off that service. Okay, so we obviously have enforcement mechanisms today. There are, the 4th bullet up there, updated backflow assembly installation requirements. So that one's, you know, we've been installing that one's a little bit sticky because we've been installing backflows a certain way, some of them even underground. And now one of the backflow recommendations or requirements, rather, that is like a little different than before, was the state in their handbook strongly recommends against installing backflows underground. It doesn't ban them, it just strongly recommends against them. So there's some things that we do over time. Well, definitely with new connections, these apply, but with existing connections, there's some grace period that's allowed to sort of move them into more alignment with these new requirements. Okay, so taking each of those 4 points separately, the cross-control plan, each of the public water systems must have a plan outlining policies, procedures, responsibilities for preventing backflow and cross connections. The plan has these elements here: hazard assessments, how often are they done, what's the content, what are they looking for with a hazard assessment, who does those, are they certified? All of those things need to be answered by the plan. Inventory of backflow prevention assemblies. Of course, we have that today. Testing and inspection schedules. We have that today. It's done on an annual basis. Enforcement procedure for noncompliance. That's in our code. Will we need to tweak our code, you know, our ordinance, our municipal code here and there? Maybe. We don't have to have those details right here tonight, but it's saying, you know, over time, it's seen as a living document that over time you're able to continue to change it and make it better. And then record keeping and reporting requirements. So those are all, the plan is the overall overarching document, keeping us organized in this regard. So it continues on to the next slide. Designate the responsible person. We're under 3,000 service connections, so a city employee doesn't have to be a certified backflow installer person take a 80-hour course on this, and but we do have to designate somebody from the city or a department to be in charge of the backflow program, and then we could hire, which we do now, a third party to have that certification, okay, to approve the hazard assessments and be that certified, give us that certification. And then the plan, like I said, is a living document. It's reviewed and updated regularly. The State Water Board comes up with alterations to the law from time to time, and we would have to stay on our toes and make sure the plan stays updated. Sometimes it doesn't apply to us, like this double connection on recycled water systems or something that was passed just this year. So, okay, so the next bullet out of those four is the big one, hazard assessments. And so we get 5 years to complete hazard assessments of all 2,700 roughly of our customers. Classify each of those connections as lower or high. And that determines what type of a backflow device they get or that they're required to have. And then there's the ongoing follow-up assessments under certain circumstances. So if there was a major, like if we had a building permit, so someone added a pool, for example, that would trigger a new hazard assessment. Oh, they have a pool now. They didn't need a backflow before, now it does. So any sort of significant change to that property would trigger a hazard assessment, or evidence that there was a backflow event or potential for a backflow event, or it's pretty, some of them are kind of vague, what triggers this, but there's like a bulleted list of what that would be. And then the assessments are reviewed by certified AWWA cross-connection specialist. Okay, next one is the records management. And we do records management now. We obviously have a number of backflows that, letters get sent out. They have to show proof that they've done the annual certification, inspection, testing. And then, of course, there's the ones that have not done that. So we send somebody out to do it ourselves and then charge them for it and all. So there's this sort of administrative task that we do today, but now we're now including hazard assessments with that. And so the records management, task is grown with this bill, okay? All right, updated backflow requirements, thank you. Above ground installation strongly recommended. So that doesn't mean that for existing customers that have underground backflows, they immediately have to dig those up and replace them. In fact, our engineering standards today we have a standard for an underground backflow device. We'll have to cross that out, erase it, and then modify our other standards, because now they have to be 12 inches to 36 inches above the grade. And that was not a requirement before. Freeze and flood protection covered. We put those green covers over each one of those, or that's what's done when you look around town. Some of them have them, some of them don't. They're supposed to be kept. There's measures to protect them against floods. Apparently, some in other jurisdictions are in confined spaces. That doesn't happen here, but there's a point about that in the requirements. So confined space is something that you'd have to have the fire department stand by, a tripod, a trained group of 3 people, you know, lower them into the confined space. So we don't have any of those in this jurisdiction, in our city. But that's the type of detail that's in here. And then identification tagging, we have to keep track of where the backflows are. Okay, so this is the second to last slide, impact to existing customers, and we've tried to do our best and to capture this. What does this mean to existing customers? Because the burden of this is going to, I mean, we have record keeping, we've got these assessments, we have to stay organized about it, but the burden of switching out these backflows when that's triggered, when that's required, falls on our customers. We have customers with fire sprinkler systems. To my knowledge, I know the staff report said we have some, but to my knowledge, we don't have any, because our standards are, if you are a new service connection, and this is standards going back decades, if you have a new service connection and you have a fire sprinkler system, you're required to have a backflow device. So if there are some out there, existing out there, they would be in the 70s or something. They had time ago, but they didn't have sprinkler systems so much back then. So I really don't think we have those situations. For new customers, like I said, they're required to have backflows with the fire sprinkler systems. Okay, so the second bullet there, customers with fire sprinkler systems and backflows, and the backflow is underground. Like I said, that's because it's existing, that's okay. But if there's a major change to that property, we would require them to switch out their backflow to be above ground. And then backflows installed less than 12 inches above grade, those need to be raised when replacing the assembly, major repairs, or relocation. Hazard assessment flags it as a compliance issue. I know for the 40 backflows that we have, our consultant during the annual inspection gave us a list of backflows that needed to be raised, maybe 2 inches in some cases, 3 inches, whatever. And after reviewing this, there's no like immediate need for us to do that, but it's something that we should keep on the list of things we should do, you know, but so we can budget for it and plan it out. Okay, that's the presentation, and the recommendation is to adopt the resolution, you know, after discussion, is to adopt the resolution approving the cross-connection control plan.
All right, questions from council? Councilmember Sparks.
Thanks. Thank you for the report. I had 3 questions. One was the time frame for doing the initial assessments. You said in the presentation that we were going to do it within 5 years, but in the packet, I saw a 7-year time frame for high hazard and a 15-year time frame for low hazard. So I was curious about that. That was on page 6 of the report, which was packet page 476.
On the staff report?
No, in the actual plan document. It says initial hazard assessment. I'm on packet page 476. Any facilities that have not received an initial hazard assessment will be surveyed within 7 years, and residential multifamily without a prior assessment will be surveyed within 15 years.
I'd have to refer to the plan on that then, and it's relative to when the plan gets adopted. So if that were to happen tonight, it would be from tonight, 7 years, 10 years.
So the 5-year thing was just, we're not going to try to do the assessment within 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be whatever the plan is, because this will go to the State Water Board. If they approve it, that's the schedule we're on. That's
Okay.
the 7 and 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then that's not as much of an impact on staff if we're spreading it out over, are we really allowed to spread it out over 15 years?
If they approve the plan, then
Yeah.
it would be, yeah.
Okay. Another question I had was, just for my understanding, what does it look like to do a hazard assessment? Like what, if you're going out to, say, just a residential area, what are we looking at? Would we be able to send our own staff to do the assessment and then the nice licensed person would just review it, or?
We visualize, we see hiring a company to do this. And what they have to find out is if they have pumps or chemicals or any kind of, this would be commercial, I hope it's not residential we're talking about, but anything that could pose a hazard would have to be a fairly thorough search of the property to find that out. You can't find that out by just looking at the property from the street. You'd have to go inside. Go into the yard, go in the back, go inside the building, ask what their business is, what chemicals they use, if they have pumps, what's that piping system over there? And it would be going into the properties.
And if we were having to do an assessment for every single water connection, does that mean actually going to single-family homes and poking around in the backyard, or what does that look like?
I think that's yet to be seen, how strict those investigations would be. Yeah, I think that's yet to be seen. I think we would want to protect our customers and do a thorough job and meet the requirements of the law, but then balance that with being invasive. So I think that's going to be a balancing act.
Do you think that we would come back and as we kind of flesh out how we're actually going to do this and make adjustments to this plan so that it sort of spells out more what that would look like?
Yeah, as the city manager and for this could be kicked back at us. We're adopting, we're considering adopting it tonight, and then we're going to send it off to the State Water Board, and they're the ultimate. They're going to have to approve it, but they might find fault with it and ask for revisions, and we'd be back here again saying, "Oh, these are the changes."
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. And then, yeah.
Councilmember Sparks, I'd also say that at some point when we, as Craig had mentioned, we'll be looking to hire someone that, like a certified backflow prevention tester that would be doing the survey, and that'll, I'm sure it'll come to council, for the scope of work and the approval. I would hope that the process for single family is different than the process for like commercial, industrial, maybe multifamily housing, because I can't envision a scenario where you have to go into everyone's single family home to look around. That seems crazy to me, but I don't, that's just me. I don't know. But I do think that there would probably be just common sense. There would be some sort of triaged surveying work based on the sort of categorical level of threat. So it might be like a questionnaire sent to, like, in my perfect world, right? It would be maybe a questionnaire sent to a residential customer with just a review of aerials that are publicly available to see if there's anything there, and unless there's some sort of special hazard that would otherwise require a more detailed analysis, like an industrial site or a commercial site. I wouldn't think that they would want us to be physically on property, because it also gets into getting permission, and there's a lot to that if you actually have to physically get on someone's property. And for something that's low risk, I'd hope the State Water Board wouldn't require it.
There might be some deference to our judgment, the public water system officials, because the State Water Board certainly is not going to take every hazard assessment and review it. So it's us and what the certified testers and evaluators or judge needs to happen. So there might be, a little bit of leeway in there.
Thank you. I'm just trying to understand, because it looks like a big project, so trying to understand what additional staff expenses we're going to be looking at in the future. And then last question I had was just, we received a comment from Neil Hancock kind of asking about what the impact would be on existing customers who suddenly have to potentially install these backflow devices. Did you have a chance to see that comment, or did you have any response you could give to that?
Yeah, and I think we covered that in the presentation during the hazard. I think that the biggest impact would be during the hazard evaluations if it's discovered that there's properties out there that warrant having a backflow installed and they don't currently have a backflow. That might be, that would be a significant impact to that customer, because it's $3,000 or $4,000 to have one of those installed.
But people who don't have any fire suppression system, don't have any weird stuff going on at their house, it's not likely that individuals would suddenly be surprised with.
I could see where potentially there's like someone with a pool or someone with a private well that was missed. Maybe they're a 1960s house or whatever, and it predates CCR 17. So there might be a few of those out there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Harvey.
So right now, we're just looking to approve this plan, and I assume that the development of the plan was in our work plan and is budgeted. How soon do we anticipate getting a response back, and how will that impact our budget, especially since we're now on this 2-year budget, and this is kind of a unfunded mandate? So it sounds like there's some runway here. But I'd like to understand the budget impact.
To date, the budget impact has been very minimal. This was done by staff in-house. And I think the cost impacts are going to be with the hazard assessments. However, like I said, the cost of this program would be borne by our customers affected. So that is yet to be seen. We don't know what that impact is right now, but it is a program that's currently run and paid for by the impacted customers. For example, we don't pay for the backflow certifications, on those customer accounts, and so. Understanding the hazard assessments would be for everybody. So I don't know how that's going to play out. I think there would be some impact to the enterprise fund, but I'm not sure exactly what that would be.
And do we have any sense of what the cost of a consultant will be? Are we talking $1 million? Are we talking hundreds of thousands? I mean, consultants are not cheap, and we have 2,700 connections, so any guess on those costs? It just said they could be costly in the staff report.
I don't, sorry.
Okay.
I doubt it would be millions. I
Okay.
don't think it's going to be that high. But I do think that if we do have a 7-year runway, as we talked about earlier, the only cost in this current cycle, because it wasn't, the cost of hiring a surveyor wasn't budgeted in our 2-year cycle. But if we have 7 years of runway, then we're not going to necessarily need to hire them in our currently adopted 2-year cycle. We could go out and get proposals, figure out what that cost is going to be, and come back to council.
And does that come out of the water budget? Okay, so that also has impact, because it means if we have consultant costs, they're not included in our rate study either.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think she just asked my question. It was about whether the water or the enterprise funds could be used for some of the staff or city costs.
it's, yeah, water enterprise.
Just a follow-up question, are there other jurisdictions that do this in-house that we could contract with? Like, does the city of Petaluma and the city of Rohnert Park have somebody in-house that does this? We could explore it with potentially cheaper than a contractor?
That's a really good suggestion. We could reach out to Santa Rosa, and we already contract out for GIS, you know, so.
You mean do the hazard assessment or the record keeping?
The hazard, for the hazard, the initial hazard assessments, yeah.
Thank you for that suggestion.
So is it fair to say that the biggest difference between Title 17 and the new handbook is the backward-looking, bringing all accounts up to current standard? Like Title 17 only applied to new development?
Yes, I mean, I would have characterized it as we have to do hazard assessments, and the record keeping is much more involved than before. And those are two, and then the third piece is the actual backflow configurations are different. The requirements are modified.
But those modified requirements don't require existing backflow prevention devices to be replaced with with what meets the new standards, or do they? Is that going to be another big impact for existing customers?
If the status quo, if they just don't change, it does not trigger it. But there's a number of circumstances, like if there's major modifications that would trigger that backflow device to be either altered or added.
Right, and you highlighted the below ground or not high enough above ground, but does that also apply to the wrong kind of device? You know, you move up from whatever, I forget the names, double check to air pressure, whatever.
Yeah, so there's different levels, right? There's, with a low, it's double detector check. So you got two check valves, and you can isolate one and isolate the other and check them. And then there's the backflow device, which is more rigorous, and you get more of a pressure drop through that device. And then the fail-safe one is an air gap, where you actually have an air gap, so the water can't jump, back up into the system. And we're in the one that everyone's landing on is the backflow device as being the one that's going to be questioned the least.
Okay, but I was asking, so existing customers with the double check, would this require them to upgrade those to a backflow device?
No, the handbook actually lists double checks as valid backflow prevention devices.
Okay. And I understand that this is kind of like the housing element. We send it off to to the State Water Board, and they have to approve it. And are there jurisdictions that have already gotten theirs through? And so are there already approved plans out there that you looked at in drafting ours?
Yes, and what I failed to mention in the presentation is we were supposed to have an adopted plan by July 1st. But there is a mechanism to ask for an extension, and we asked for an extension to December 31st. So we're getting under the wire on getting this adopted and submitted.
Great. Okay, any more questions? All right, let's open up for public comment on the cross-connection control plan. Let's start in the room. Anybody wishing to make public comment? Not seeing anybody, let's check with Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Zoom attendees, please use the raise hand icon to make a public comment. The first hand is from Neil Hancock. You have the floor.
Yes, good evening, Council. Thank you very much for considering the questions, and for Council Person Laura for asking my questions. What I hear is that this is about really preventing a disaster, keeping good water for everybody. But the city has quite a sophisticated system for monitoring the pressure of the inline systems. So that didn't seem to be reflected anywhere in the report. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is that it would seem to me that would reflect that we have done a very good job already of being able to see how our pressure fluctuates up and down The second, or one of the second question I had was whether or not our real-time water meters can detect and report the backflow conditions. And is that valuable to even bring up that it can do that? So that would give a very a simple historical view of have there been any likely conditions. But as I say, I mean, we have a small system. It seems to me like that would be in our favor. We have a very sophisticated, as I understand it from previous reports many years ago, of the way the pressure is monitored in the system to be able to detect any leaks and to triangulate on those if there are any leaks that come through. Subsequently, looking at this, and this was somewhat on the basis that if it had to scale across the 2,100 current connections, which it sounds like it probably won't, but there are devices, because this seems to be very visible, for doing more of an automatic monitoring of the backflow devices. So there was just I put in a hint in here that if this did become more widespread, could the city manage effectively the testing or the virtual testing of the devices rather than putting them onto the homeowners? But maybe that's getting a little bit ahead of where the report's going, or what might be fed back from the water boards on the analysis of this. But that was the core of my question was, can the real-time water meters detect and report the backflow that we have, and does it make sense to put in something about how sophisticated a system we have for monitoring the pressure, and how unlikely really a backflow condition is likely to be, and it's only really likely to be if there's a disaster of some sort. So this sort of ticks another box about disaster preparedness. I'll take my comments offline. Thank you, or take the answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And there are no further hands on Zoom. Mayor Ford, that will end public comment.
All right, back to council. Would you like to respond, Director Scott, to any of the questions that were raised?
I'll take a stab at it. So 3 distinct items here. One is the city has, and Neil is correct, every third meter has a water loss sensor on it. And the water loss sensor is designed to pick up losses in the system. So it's focused on the system. And the idea, the thought there is when we get a water, it's for the conservation of water and all of that. And when there's a water leak and it springs up out of the ground, well, it's obvious. And we go and we find it, we fix it. But there's a number of leaks that happen that are invisible, that go directly into a storm drain, and they go for months and months and months, and those can be quite a lot of volume. And so these systems are designed to pick up on those invisible leaks. So we go, aha, we've got one here, and we go out and we go, there it is, and we would have not have found it if it not for this device. So it's designed, that's what it's specifically designed to do. And then the second one was, can a meter detect? We've got these AMI advanced meter instruments out there that measure volume of water through the meter, that the customer's using every 30 seconds, every minute, something like that. And those are designed to measure and send that signal to a collector, and so into our master database to measure our customers' water use. That's what it's designed to do. And it's streamlined having to have our public works crews go out there every month and read every single meter manually. So it's a big labor saver. To take it and say each one of these meters is now an instrument that can alarm us, that's a jump that no one's that I'm aware of has looked at. Like it might be a different capability of the meters to like, oh, we've received an alarm. Oh, it's from this house. Oh, it's because it it flowed backwards. Oh, that's because of some aberration. We'd be chasing that down a lot for like errors and any number of things. So I guess my main point is they're not designed to do that. They're designed to read demands on customers, and that's what they do really well. Not to alarm us for other things. And then it is true that the city has provisions in place for if there's an earthquake or loss of power or something that some catastrophic event that would cause a break in our system and pressures to drop. And we have this whole customer notification plan. And if that, in the worst case, issue a boil water notice, like, yes, you can use the water, but don't drink it, boil it first. So there's, again, that's something that all water systems have contingency plans to do. So these are, outside the box thinking that we're hearing. And I'd love for someone, another city, to start using this first and show us how to do it, or, so.
Yeah, and I will add too that the AMI system will read whatever the meter's telling it, So some meters do have the capability to read reverse flow. And I think, the thought that Neil Hancock had raised is something, when we do the initial hazard assessment, that's a topic we could broach with that contractor is, hey, we have this meter database. Some of the meters may be able to read reverse flow. We can look into it potentially. But I think that's where that would be, that capability for the meters that have it could be the most useful. As far as like virtual testing, the state has very prescriptive rules around how meter backflows get tested. So you have to be a certified backflow prevention, person. So in other words, the state regulations don't allow, like, even if the meters had the capability to detect reverse flow, the regulations don't allow that as a valid backflow test. It's very prescriptive right now. So I guess there's two parts. When we do initial hazard assessment, there could be something there that we could look into. But for the actual ongoing maintenance, it's not something we could use for virtual testing.
Okay, thanks. Can I give one more comment on, so Neil didn't mention it in the spoken comment, but in his letter, he requests tentative sort of forward-looking agendas, and I want to point out we do now have that on our council webpage. It's we haven't advertised it fully because we don't have a really sort of systematized way to make sure that continually gets posted, but this item did go up on December 1st on the website, or maybe a little before. So it wasn't just last week that we found it. Or I guess it was early last week, if that went up on December 1st. Yes?
I would pose that Mr. Hancock is one of our most engaged citizens, so if he wasn't aware that that was something that was possible to view on the website, we might need to advertise it a little bit more if we want people to see it. Yeah.
We've definitely been soft launching it, experimenting with it.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Councilmember Harvey.
So this concept or thought of using these smart meters, not a lot in the state uses those. I mean, a lot of agencies are still rolling them out. We happen to be, kind of advanced on that. Might it be worthwhile at least broaching the subject with the Water Control Board? Because while you say it's prescriptive and they've only thought of doing things one way, if there's another way or a possibility, it might be worth at least broaching that subject if there's a possibility that they have that capability. Because it might not be that they thought about it.
Yeah, I was sort of being alerted if there's a backflow situation is very different than preventing backflow, and so it's just a different a different thing. That it would be interesting if the meters have that capability to actually be alerted, but it wouldn't address the preventing backflow, which is the whole point of the plan. So I feel like that feels like a tangent that is maybe interesting, but isn't really connected to the plan. Personally, I think the plan's fine. I don't have any objections to it. I'm assuming that you sort of took a lot of boilerplate from the handbook and maybe from some other jurisdictions' approved plans, and hopefully we're not going to get a lot of pushback, but we'll see.
Right, and I think we have, sounds like we have a long time if there's any modifications needed. You know, if it's not like a 5-year, 7-year, 15-year type of implementation, that we have time to kind of revise it as things kind of unfold.
If there's no more discussion, anybody want to move to approve the plan?
I make a motion, we adopt a resolution adopting a new cross-connection control plan for the city of Cotati pursuant to the California State Water Resources Control Board's cross-connection control policy handbook. Geez, what a mouthful.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries 4-0. Thank you.
I saw a YouTube video on this because I wanted to learn more about it. It was USC. It was a teaching video, so I just watched it just because I wanted to understand a little more. It's a lot of technical stuff on there.
Yes. That is Director Scott's world. All right, we are on to, what's the letter on this one? F. Item 8F, 2025 CalPERS unfunded actuarial liability review, policy compliance, and funded status. Director Corder.
Great. So good evening, Council, Mayor, Vice Mayor. I am going to turn it over to Dimitri, but before I do so, I do want to say I think I win in the typo award for the night. I did not mean to have it right there in the subject, the title, the headline right there up front center. There is an actual additional R in actuarial, which should be removed. But I'm really happy to have Dimitri present on this item. We debated whether we really needed to take your time to represent this, but we think it really is a good story of what actions council has allowed us to take, what policies we've adopted that have put us in the position we are today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Dimitri.
All right. Thank you, Angela. Good evening, Mayor Ford, members of the council. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. Okay, so as Angela mentioned, we're going to take a quick look over what's happening in the CalPERS land. As a reminder, back in January of 2022, the city closed on pension obligation and street improvement loans. And that allowed the city to refinance approximately $6 million of the unfunded liability with CalPERS and save over $2.25 million in interest payments. So, and the timing worked out really well. The closing took place right before the interest rates ran up. So that allowed the city to lock in very low interest rates on that refinancing. And what's been happening over the last several years is in fiscal year 2023, CalPERS made 5.8%, which is 1% below the target 6.8% discount rate. So that resulted in an increase to the unfunded liability. But since then, in 24 and 25, CalPERS actually made really strong returns. So in 24, there was an investment gain of 9.3%, which is an over, 2.5 over the target. And then 2025 was even stronger at 11.6, which was the estimate that was announced recently. But since we finalized the slides, they actually they finalized their return actually 12.1%. So it's even better than 11.6. So, more than 5% over the target rate. So really strong performance, works out great in the city's favor. And we're going to talk about kind of how everything's shaking out. So some of you may remember this table. This is the snapshot of the pension plans as of June 30, 2024. So it's about a year and a half back. That's the most recent official information available from CalPERS. In the table, we have 3 columns. The first column is what's called total accrued liability, And that's the amount of money that the city needs to have in its pension plans to be able to meet all the retirement obligations to employees and retirees and the beneficiaries. So that's about $47.5 million. So that's where you need to be. The second column is the market value of assets. And basically what it means is what you actually have. And that number is $40.4 million, so $40.5 million. That's what you actually have. So you need to have 47, you have 40.5. And the shortfall is the third column. That's what's called unfunded accrued liability, or the UAL. That's about $7 million. So across the the two plan categories, safety and miscellaneous, you were about 85% funded. Okay. Next slide, please. Then we looked at what actually happened since that data, since 2024 numbers were finalized, and added all the contributions, the benefit payments, the money that CalPERS has made since then. And it looks like as of the end of fiscal year 2025, you're right about 90+% funded. So, with the additional contributions that the city made, the market performance that CalPERS was able to achieve, it looks like we're going to end 2025 fiscal year at 90% funded level. Next slide, please. This graph is the schedule of the repayment of the unfunded liability as of 2024, plus the loans that were used to refund the CalPERS's liability. And as you can see, things are kind of at this point more or less level for about the next decade, and then payments will start getting lower. And the greens, the green bars are the payments that the city has already made. The blue bars are the payments that are coming up from this fiscal year 2026 through 2044. The dark portion is the actual UAL that's outstanding, and the light portion above is the debt service on the debt. So that's kind of the summary of where things are. So right about $1 million to $1.1 million. That's the repayment schedule combined on the UAL and the debt based on the 2024 numbers. Next slide, please. And then, as I mentioned, 2025, CalPERS made extra money. So estimated gain of 11.6, which has been revised to 12.1. Funding surplus of 4.6%, actually 5.1% after the discount rate. And right now, we have no visibility into 2026. CalPERS has not even published the first quarter returns, but what the numbers mean is that the unfunded liability will actually go down by at least another couple $1 million, most likely more, after the adjustment. But that's before anything else that CalPERS may tweak. They usually do some fine-tuning where they reconcile the performance versus the assumptions. But basically, we're expecting just from the extra returns alone, the UL to go down by about $2 million. Next slide, please. And this is what it means for the city. The red line is the new profile of the payments that we're expecting to see after the 2025 results are reflected on in the pension plans. So really, the 26 and 27 fiscal years, we're not going to see any difference, but then the payments will start going down pretty substantially, actually, and which is really great news for the city. Next slide, please. So over the last several years, the city's been really sticking to the policy that it adopted when the pension liability was refunded, and has made some substantial additional contributions into the pension plan. In fiscal year 2024, the city put in about $290,000, and in fiscal year 25, about $400,000. That was done to address the negative amortization. You may remember, negative amortization is where the CalPERS charges interest without the associated payments on the new unfunded liability. So the city's been proactive in making sure that that doesn't happen. So with these additional payments And the market performance, we're estimating that the 2025 pension plan is funded at approximately 90%, which is right along the lines of what the city has put into the policy. That's the goal, and we finally got there. So at this point, no additional ADPs are needed, not this year, and we don't expect any for next year either. So really, this is great news. After several years of really hard work, we're the place that's very few cities in California can say that they have achieved. So this is the time to congratulate yourself and really enjoy the fruit of the hard work that's been done over the last 5 years. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Thank you. Any council questions? I've not seen any questions. We're all very happy for the good news. So I'm going to open this up for public comment. There's nobody in the chambers looking to make comment. I'll check online.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, Zoom attendees, use the raise hand icon to make a public comment. The first hand is from Lori. You have the floor.
Hi, I'd like to remind you guys that you did take out bonds for $6 million in 2022. And this again is a thing of it. You didn't write a check. You put them on credit card for UAL too. So, and we suffered services because you guys had to do so much. We have basically no services, and you keep, yes, it's good news that you stabilize it, but it stabilized you guys as the city. It hurt the citizens of Cotati to spend all this money, and you had 12 million between the two in 22, and you act like it's that we're not going to be paying it off and our current expenses in the future. So we're not. This is nothing to celebrate because you put it onto bonds, and that's caused the problems for our future. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
That was the last hand on Zoom. Mayor Ford, that will end public comment.
Thank you. I was going to ask one question about the money that we essentially borrowed in 2022 to pay down our unfunded liability. So by having that money in CalPERS, say over the fiscal 2025, we earned 12% on that money. And can you remind me what we're paying on those loans?
So the interest rate on the loans is about 3.5%, I believe.
Okay.
And it's actually a double benefit for the city. So one is if the city didn't refinance, didn't take out the bonds and pay down the UAL, it would have been paying 7%, and then as of a couple of years later, 6.8% every year on that money. Instead, we're paying in the 3% range. Right. So that's that's the savings of over $2.25 million that the city was able to lock in.
Right.
And then since then, CalPERS has been making significantly over the 3% interest rate, and that's an additional benefit to the city, which actually helped you get much closer to the funded level.
Thanks.
So it is something to celebrate, because if these steps had not been done, it would have cost the city way more money, and even in the current payments as well. So it's not just all future savings, it's we're already seeing those savings that are directly translating into the city's cash flows.
And just because I want this to be really clear to anybody listening, we didn't take on new debt with that $6 million. That was transferring debt that we already owed to CalPERS into a much lower interest form of debt. Is that accurate?
Right. It's like refinancing a mortgage at a much lower interest rate.
Right. Okay. Thanks. Back to council for discussion. Any? Councilmember Sparks.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I just want to appreciate our staff for being so proactive about this. It's really paying off. And also I want to thank you, Dimitri. I know we don't see you very often on Zoom, but it's been really nice to have the continuity of working with you for several years. So thank you for helping us.
It's been a pleasure.
Anything else? Vice
No,
Mayor
just
Lemus.
agree. Great job, Dimitri and staff, Angela, everyone else. A great job on this. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anything else? Okay. So consider the report received and filed. Thank you. Thank you, Dimitri.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, and we are on to our final regular agenda item, 8G, 2025 State of the City. City Manager Obid.
All right, so thank you, Mayor, members of the council. While we get the presentation loaded up, thank you. I wanted to, there was a similar version that was given to the Business Alliance a couple weeks ago that I wanted to go through, but I thought this would be kind of a good entry point, which is in the background of this title slide is the concept design for the larger of the two barns at the Verona Fletty Ranch. So that's the eventual vision that we'll hopefully get to. So I've heard this for a long time that, from a variety of sources, developers of all types, contractors, lenders, banks that work with contractors, that Cotati Cotati's anti-development. You got to stay away from that place. They're going to be a pain to work with, and it's going to take forever to get your project approved, and they're always going to be changing the goalpost on you. And to be totally frank, this was largely true 20 years ago, but it's not even close to true anymore. And so, now when we work with developers, the most common thing we hear is surprise about how easy it is to work in Cotati and how transparent and quick we work, and that's a testament to the staff here that they're able to able to quickly process things. But it really goes back to the council and all of the policy direction that the council's been for many years now, been continuing to push staff to get better. Housing, as you know, from a prior poll, is one of the community's highest priorities, housing of all types. So, it started there, and the council has been every year pushing to continue to make sure that we refine what we do so that we preserve what's important to the community through like objective design standards, code amendments, and so forth, but streamline everything else and get rid of things that don't matter to the community so they're not obstacles to development, they're not slowing things down, they're not adding cost to projects. So anyway, we're very different now, and so we've been actively just starting now to tell our story outside of Cotati. And you guys all know this because these are all policy decisions that you had directed us to work on and eventually authorized. But we've done a lot for permit streamlining. It's everything from the policy level stuff that the council's done, but also everything down to the forms and the kind of the processes internally on how things happen. There's been a lot of streamlining work, density, especially in our priority development areas, a lot of density options in priority development areas that in particular would allow us to ideally incentivize developers to come in and develop to our standards. So that's the double density, for example. Like don't take the state, don't take the state ministerial path. Come and work with us because we have a better option for you if you work with us and work within our development framework. So we have a lot of options for developers now. No impact fees, so we've incentivized obviously the high quality hotels, but also the affordable units and multifamily developments. And we've more recently, just this year, we've been developing the project liaison. So when someone comes in with a development project, they're assigned a person that stays with that project through the whole thing. So as they hand off from phase to phase, there's someone that can always help triage any obstacles they run into. We've recently started the business liaison program. In fact, we just started talking to the chamber about it. We're going to start in January, but we have a website stood up, a web page stood up already for it to help existing businesses, new businesses, if they come in, if they need any help for whatever reason, whether it's there's some obstacle. What we've discovered is that a lot of businesses, people have a passion for the thing that they want to go in business for, but oftentimes they don't know a lot about how to navigate regulations, how to navigate the various agencies that they need to get approvals from. And so that's what that's hoping to address, both with our existing businesses, but new businesses. Like come to Cotati, we can help you, we can help find you an appropriate place in town to locate your business, but then also help you navigate. Obviously, if there's any questions about our regulations, we do that anyway, but if you have other problems with county health or the water board or whatever, we can help you figure that out. So we're just starting to roll that part out now. So housing, everyone here knows what the RHNA number is. Cotati was, in this latest 8-year cycle, Cotati was assigned 234 units of production. We've, the city has already approved basically 2.5 times that RHNA requirement. So we're a couple years into the cycle, but we were already 2.5 times that. And that's, I think, in large part a testament to the clear development standards and the quick processing, and then the, so that we're getting the projects processed that meet the community standards, and we're doing it quickly and transparently. There's other opportunity areas that we talk to the outside world about, our priority development areas, the train depot downtown and the 116 corridor in particular. We have more projects in the pipeline too. That's just what's been approved to date. More recently, Generation Housing. So Generation Housing, every year they look at all the different cities and the county of Sonoma, and they look at their development, all their development standards, their transparency, their fairness, ease of doing business with, and there's a variety of categories they look at, and they aggregate all the scores up, and then they used to call it a report card. They don't call it anymore a report card because that kind of, I guess, triggered some people, but they call it a housing report. And so in the 2025 State of the Housing in Sonoma County, Cotati is the highest of all the cities or the county in Sonoma County in terms of doing housing production. And it's across 7 categories, as the slide says. On the infrastructure side, so now we are in the 90th percentile of all Bay Area cities our size in terms of our street and road condition. And that's not by accident. The council has for many years prioritized significant investment into our roads. We started near the bottom in Sonoma County in terms of our road condition, and today, and this isn't us saying it, this is the Metropolitan Transportation Commission who ranks all the cities based on third-party reviews of our street conditions. We are now the highest, we have the best road condition of any city or the county in Sonoma County. And it's not just to say that, it's, as the council well knows, we're in the mid-70s right now. Once we get into the low 80s, at that point, it's going to be much less expensive to continue to fix any broken roads. So if you get to a point where you're and that point is in the 80s, in terms of pavement condition index, once you get there, your annual investment is at a much reduced level. You can easily maintain that at a much lower level, which allows the council to spend those additional funds on other community priorities. We're almost there. Like I said, we're in the mid-70s. We're almost in the 80s, but a couple more years of sustained investment, and I think we'll be very close to that. At that point, regardless of city size, we should be close to the top in the Bay Area with continued investment. And with the roads and the parks, just to put it in perspective, it has been roughly about half of our general fund revenue over the last 5 years been invested in, and the community can see the streets and the parks, of course, the more recent park projects. So there's been a lot of investment, and it's aside from it just being a better infrastructure for the community, it also actually reduces our long-term costs on the roadside. The street or the parks, you have nice parks, you have to spend more money to maintain them, but that's just having nice parks. But anyway, it allows the council to redirect some of the funds to other priorities. Safety, we've also been very committed to safety, and And last year in 2024, we had 224 DUI arrests, and I think the council's already heard this, but I'm just all putting this together into a single batch of slides, that we received the Top Cop and Century Awards for one of our officers from Mothers Against Drunk Driving, because our Top Cop got more DUI arrests than any officer ever in Sonoma County, and any officer in the 30-county Northern California region. So we've been getting a lot of DUI drivers off the road, helping keep people safe. On the financial side, so we have now 17 years of balanced budgets, and I will say, that obviously we spend a lot of time making sure that we diligently control costs. That's definitely part of it, but also the community has been very supportive with Measure S and kind of helping not only this, but just everything, the infrastructure and everything else we've been talking about tonight. And it is through a constant, we have the revenue, but we also have a constant cost control and conservative budgeting, which has enabled us to maintain, with all the news you hear about the other cities in the county having budget issues. We're not there right now because we've been able to control costs. And we also are a 6th consecutive year GFOA Triple Crown winner, and that means that when you win awards on your budget, on your annual audit, and on the PAFR, which is the community version of the annual audit. And that's a third party, the Governmental Finance Officers Association is a third party that reviews them, so it's not us reviewing them, obviously. You have a third party doing it, and they, if you meet all the best practices, you meet all the highest standards in each one of these categories, and you win awards in each one of those 3 categories, every year you get a Triple Crown. And so we've won 6, thanks to our very diligent staff, we've won 6 in a row now. And as far as other cities in Sonoma County, I'm not aware of any other cities that have won one of them. And so, we're 6 years in now on that. We've been able to maintain a 90% reserve average over the last 5 years. And this is covered by the captioning, but we just talked about it. We have, the council set a goal of getting a 90% funded with our unfunded liability, and we are there. So that's, as Dimitri said in the last presentation, that's something to be proud of and to celebrate. And it's the testament to all the work that we've all been doing to be able to do that. And markets go up and down, so it's going to be something we continue to watch obviously closely. But right now we're at our policy goal, which is great news. And then in terms of the future, so the flat revenue, this is something that all the cities, virtually all the cities, certainly all the cities in Sonoma County, but most cities in the state are dealing with, and that's either flat or downward trend in sales tax. So what we saw was in the lead up, or actually during COVID, during that couple years, there was a bump in expenditures, people buying more stuff because I guess they're sitting around their house or they're doing home improvement projects, and that's driving sales tax revenue. And so we saw a couple-year bump around COVID, and then for the last 3 years, it's been going back down. So that is a challenge for us in our general fund. We're 50% funded through sales tax. So we've seen 3 years of a downward sales tax slide, but it's not only us. We're seeing that virtually with every city. Some cities sort of overexpanded into that additional sort of COVID bump in revenue, and that's what you're seeing today with some of the other cities hitting budget issues, is they've sort of gone over their skis a bit with their expenditures, and they're having to do some dramatic budget cutbacks. So we're not there, but if you look down the road at a 3 to 5 year time horizon, it starts becoming more concerning if nothing changes. But so we're fine for right now, but it's something to watch as we get into especially the 3 to 5 year time horizon. On the other side of that, expenditures are continuing to rise, and so the basic equation is you have flat revenue and you have rising expenditures. Eventually, that's going to start creating a squeeze in infrastructure funding or money you can save. And then at some point, if it gets bad enough, like you're seeing in some other cities, they cross, and then you're actually deficit spending. And then that's all bad at that point. So it's something that we're going to continue to watch closely is in terms of our expenditures and the revenue. This is a large project that's sort of out of our wheelhouse. I just thought I'd put it in here. The Highway 116 intersection at West Cotati. It's a state highway, so it's not our infrastructure per se, but for a variety of reasons, we are taking the lead on that because the state isn't, and it's going to enable us to, aside from making that intersection safer, it'll also unlock a lot of development potential in that priority development area on 116. And anyway, just to reiterate, we're very, what you know about us from 20 years ago is incorrect. Today we're very business friendly. We have a lot of development opportunities, especially in our priority development areas. And we are we're starting the ask for sponsors for the barns at the ranch. So that's going to be something as we get into 2026, we're going to start getting more into. And yeah, so Cotati is a great location in Sonoma County. We have clear requirements, and we're ready to help you succeed. In, if you come in, we'll tell you what our community goals are and what our community's expectations are, and as long as you can meet them, we'll get you there. So that's where things are. But I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions?
Just a quick one. I thought I saw a table with all of our condition indexes, and we were at a 3-year running average of 72. So what's our actual number? Do you know this year? It must be a little higher than 72.
It's 75.
75. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
It's being dragged down by some, as we've been.
Past. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. We do have a hand, and so this is a non-action item, but when somebody wishes to make a comment, we open other items as well. So we'll start with Zoom for public comment.
Thank you, Mayor Ford. Once again, Zoom attendees use the raise hand icon. The first hand is from Lori. You have the floor.
I was unsure whether this was an action item or not. This was a great presentation by Damien for business, but it's a misrepresentation of reality, of what the residents of Cotati deal with. For one thing, the street store being up, I said this last meeting, you took out $6 million of bonds, and that was extra for emergency repairs. If you look at the thing, and so basically you've put it on the credit card, and it'll look real shiny now, and like buying a tuxedo, and you'll be dressed up by when you're paying your current credit card bill, the credit card bill in the future, and trying to do you'll be in rags. You put it off a whole huge expense to look shiny right now, and that's not what's going on. Some of the parks investment was because the police station and Cotati, the roof was able to be repaired, and so it went to Sunflower Park, and so that seems like a misrepresentation. What is a representation to most of the people in Cotati is the Cotati Hotel, and where it's sent. It's been for 2 years, looking like a disaster. That's been taking, you would spend over, with the functional exchange agreement, you used $1 million of our funds to pay off the functional exchange agreement. We did without because of that. Then we didn't get a hotel because of this, everything. So you're in two different worlds. You have this business one that's all on paper and it looks really shiny and all this, and then there's the reality for the rest of residents who get stuck with the bills, hardly any services. We mooch off Roanoke Park for most everything, and we don't have a senior services. We don't have a senior center. We don't have teens. We don't have library. We don't have any buildings. We haven't built a new building in many years. Well, the train station, forgot about that. But the train station's never been open. It's just, you need to tell us the truth and not this conglomeration, I can't say the word, of things, and not present to the business people that it's so rosy here. You also have spent probably $300,000. We don't know because nobody even knows who's paying the damn judge. It's in February 1st of this year on going after one man. We know at least of 200,000 has gone. We don't know. Kevin's doing a PRA for me right now to find some of the costs of this. But you guys are wasting money, and you need to be real with the people. You need to tell the truth and stop all this misrepresentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the last hand on Zoom. Mayor Ford, that will end public comment.
All right. Not seeing anybody in the room, I agree. That ends public comments. All right. So, back to council, any more comments? I just wanted to say, like on your last slide, you emphasized, as long as what you're proposing meets the needs of the city, we'll get you through quickly. That's one of the things I'm happiest about is clear, our design standards, things that help people understand what it is that's going to work with what the city needs. So it's not a blanket. You all come, take your drive-through fast food somewhere else, and we'll get something else. We're pretty clear about that. So, yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for the report. Anything more, Vice Mayor Lemus?
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, great information. It'd be good to promote this information out to the public. Thank you.
I did have one more thing I wanted to, so your slide was accurate. We spend the equivalent of 45% of the operating budget on parks and streets, but I just want people to be clear. We don't spend 45% of the operating budget on parks and streets. That's grants and earmarks and impact fees and a whole bunch of sources that help get us there, thanks to diligent staff who go after every funding opportunity they can. Yeah, thanks. That was great. Okay. So that completes our regular agenda, and we're on to item 9, which is our land acknowledgement and Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to stand and join us if you wish. The City of Cotati recognizes that we're on the ancestral lands of the Coast Miwok, who are the original caretakers of this area. We respectfully acknowledge the indigenous peoples who have been stewarding and maintaining a relationship on this land as knowledge keepers for millennia. This acknowledgement does not take the place of authentic relationships with indigenous communities, but serves as a gesture of respect to the land we are on. And now the pledge. Thank you. So that brings us to item 10, City Manager's Report and Council Member Reports. Back to you, City Manager Obid.
All right, thank you. I'll be brief. Sunflower Park, just that project. There is some movement with the playground. I don't know if you've been checking it out, but the playground has been ready to kind of start to get established, and they're going to be over the rest of this month, or by the end of December, the playground should be, at least the structure should be installed, and then they're going to put a mat in that's going to have a sunflower pattern on it, which is going to be, I think, pretty cool looking. And then just real quick, this past Friday we had our annual holiday tree lighting event in La Plaza Park that I know most of you were at. It was a great success with hundreds of visitors throughout the evening, visiting Santa, enjoying local vendors, and riding the horse and trolley. Saturday, the next day, was downtown Cotati Shop and Stroll, which also had a great turnout. This coming Saturday, our sold-out Breakfast with Santa event is in the Cotati room, and we have the normal pancake breakfast with eggs, crafts, and Santa, of course. And then that same day, we also have a crafting event at the ranch for teens ages 15 and up. And it includes treats and holiday crafting from 3 to 5 p.m. So the breakfast in the morning and then crafts for teens in the afternoon. Later this month, we're hosting our Camp Cotati Winter Break Camp for 2 weeks while children are off school in winter break. This is for kids aged 5 to 12. And then lastly, we are still hosting our food drive for Road Empire Food Bank through the end of the year. We collect non-perishable food items at City Hall and in the police department lobby. So those will still be there through the end of December if anybody has any food that they would like to donate. Thank you very much.
Any questions? All right, for council member reports, let's start with Vice Mayor Lemus.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So my report, and see, on the November 20th, I went to a Cotati Chamber meeting and updated them on some city items. We were, I think, off during that time, but I went to the meeting. On the November 21st, I went to Sonoma Clean Power. It wasn't a meeting, but it was a Community Advisory Committee selection ad hocs who reviewed and selected a slate of 5 nominees to present to Sonoma Clean Power Board. On the 21st of November, I went to the Regional Parks Foundation. That was like an ad hoc too, just to review and approve funding for staff initiatives. On the 1st, I went to another event, Sonoma Speedway Children's Charity. On December 3rd, I went to Assemblymember Damon Connolly's coffee chat in Petaluma on behalf of the mayor. We discussed many topics, and I brought to his attention the South County need for our SAFE T-Mobile funding for the mobile unit that we have. And then I also went on the 4th, a few weeks ago, to Sonoma Clean Power meeting, where we approved the slate of candidates to add to the Community Advisory Committee. And we also received regulatory and legislative updates. One important issue is that the CalCCA, which is all the CCAs, Association of all the CCAs, have filed an appeal with the CPUC because they decided to retroactively raise energy bills for millions of Americans, and they allowed the utilities to retroactively allow to modify the PCIA rate, which is the PCIA, right here, the power charge and difference adjustment, to do it retroactively so people will see their rates increase in January for next year. So they filed an appeal on that. I also went to the Cotati tree lighting with the mayor and other council members, and the Cotati Shop and Stroll visit with my daughter. And also want to remind people that the Cotati Chamber, Chamber of Commerce, is going to have their chamber crawl this Thursday, the 11th, starting at 5:30. It starts at the Redwood Cafe, and it ends at 7:45 at Spanky's. And so they'll go to all the different crawl establishments and have adult beverages and snacks and food. And so it's a very fun event. We might even be singing at some of the different establishments. So that's this Thursday. And also next year, January 30th, they're having their annual awards dinner. The Chamber's holding that. And they're seeking nominations of residents, businesses, and volunteers to recognize them as Volunteer of the Year, Resident, or Business of the Year. So that's going on as well. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I only have 2 things since our last meeting. The Russian River Watershed Association is just about to adopt its first ever strategic plan, and so I've been part of that planning group, and we just finalized the plan to present to the board. I think Greg, through the technical advisory committee, has also been involved in that process some. And the tree lighting was a lot of fun. Got to count down and light the lights by magic. That was great. Though we had to wait till the magic was ready for a while.
It had to warm up.
And then the magic had to warm up, right. All right, Councilmember Harvey.
Okay, since last time on 11/19, I attended the Marin Sonoma Mosquito and Vector Control Finance meeting, so we're kind of have the mid-year budget and all that, and looking at some different options for building a new building. And to add on to that, on 11/21, I spent a half a day. We interviewed 4 different groups of people for building the new building, and so we narrowed it down to 1. So hopefully we will start moving forward on that. That was great. On 11/20, I went to the Zero Waste Sonoma meeting. The biggest thing at that meeting, and more to come ultimately, was a very large discussion around artificial turf. So they are looking to come up with a model ordinance for all of the cities to be able to use for banning artificial turf. There was some pretty nasty stuff in the presentation about what happens with that. It was even more disgusting than I had even ever anticipated, and the stuff, how it gets into all our water and all our soil and all our air, and they had pictures of kids coming, home with like burns on themselves from it, and they have like some of them at some of the soccer fields in the summertime, it melts, and they literally have to chisel the stuff off the bottom of the cleats because the turf melts it. So anyways, it was really much worse than I had even anticipated. So more to come on that, but they are going to be working on that. On December 3rd, I attended the LAFCO meeting, and we approved the moving forward again with the resolutions for the Rancho Adobe Fire District to move into Sonoma County Fire. My understanding is they filed their application, so that should come, but the sphere of influence was approved by resolution on that. Then yesterday I attended the SCTCA. It's going to take me a long time to get that. The two things of note in there was, one, I had noticed that our bike racks for our Redwood Bike Share, we got a report on all of that, and it's doing pretty well. But what I was noticing is where we used to have like the 6 bikes at all of our little racks, and I was noticing that they weren't there, and apparently part of what they're learning and part of what they're trying to fine-tune is creating more hubs with fewer bikes. So they're kind of, depending upon use and where things are used, they're finding that it's about 2 miles, so they're creating some smaller hubs with like maybe 2 bikes or 3 bikes. So that's why we're not seeing all the bikes filled there. So they're really taking this opportunity to really look closer based upon the data that they're receiving to kind of spread out that hub so they get more use of them. The second thing that I think will be important to a lot in our community, because I've heard lots of complaints about this, and that's a letter was sent about the times on the HOV lanes, and apparently this next week they are actually meeting on that, and who knows what will happen, but they said that they were at least open to discussing it. So SCTCA wrote a letter, and as did Congressman Huffman. So maybe, something will happen with that, hard to say, but they said they were open to hearing, why that wasn't working for us, because I've certainly gone lots of places and received lots of complaints about the new times. So that's all I have. Oh, and I attended the tree lighting and the shop and stroll, and great event, and thanks to staff and everyone else that was involved in putting those on.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for the info on the HOV lane. It's absolutely infuriating just looking in that lane and watching single driver after single driver after hardly anybody in the HOV lane is carpooling, so there's not enough enforcement going on. I have very little to report. I also attended the tree lighting and the shop and stroll, which were just beautiful events. I just have one item as a follow-up. I think I had mentioned the salmon counts from the WAC meeting last time, and there was an article this week in the Press Democrat that coho salmon were showing up in Russian Gulch and in like lesser used waterways by salmonids showing up where they haven't been showing up for decades. So it's really, really good year for salmon, and they're finding their way up Sonoma Coast waterways.
That's great. Thank you. Any information received after the agenda was posted?
Yes, there were a few public comment letters received, as well as the updated minutes with the edits provided by Mayor Ford. All of those were posted to the HTML agenda and are available here in print in the chamber tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I will say what a pleasure it's been to serve this body and city as mayor for this year, and we are adjourned.
Ooh.
With a bang.
I'll try, yeah, 5:30 at